Chapter 10:14. A corporeal body without Een souls appeared at the head of the soul-crossing bridge, causing endless Een souls to swarm towards it. These souls acted completely on instinct. They could feel that this body wanted to occupy it. However, these Een souls were all killed by Ba Meng without exception. Seeing Ning Qing not moving, Ba Meng spoke up, "You can do the same as me. As long as your friend's spiritual soul is still in the dark nether realm, there is a 50% chance of saving her." Ning Qing nodded, and raised his hand to send out Sun Hanrui, who seemed to be in a deep sleep. Did she take the 6 Een soul pill? Ba Meng, on seeing Sun Hanrui, stared at Ning Qing in disbelief. Ning Qing nodded, "Yes, I gave her a 6 Een soul pill, but she did not wake up." "Then you should quickly take it back. The 6 Een soul pill is like reincarnation. As long as her corporeal body is still there, after taking the 6 Een soul pill, she might be able to wake up completely, even without any damage to her memory or cultivation. If her soul is still recovering, it would not be good for you to put her here to summon her soul. If you are worried that she will wake up slowly, you can put her in the place where she fell to recover." Ba Meng was shocked that Ning Qing could obtain the 6 Een soul pill, but he still explained it in detail. "Why not?" Ning Qing did not understand. Ba Meng was just about to answer, when suddenly the Een souls on the soul-crossing bridge started to riot. The Een souls that were swarming over seemed to have been hit by firecrackers, as they fled in all directions, and even issued a burst of ear-piercing screeches. "My son Ba Luo is inside," Ba Meng screamed, as he put away Ba Luo's corporeal body and rushed towards the soul-crossing bridge. He had already forgotten about the matter of not going to the soul-crossing bridge with Ning Qing. Ning Qing quickly put away Sun Hanrui. He also saw a Een soul that was vaguely similar to Ba Luo, but this Een soul was attacked by many Een souls, and finally almost collapsed. Ning Qing had just reacted. When Ba Meng was engulfed by the endless Een souls on the soul-crossing bridge, Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness could barely see Ba Meng's shadow among the endless Een souls. Ba Meng was in danger. Ning Qing had just thought until here, when he saw a huge black mouth rolling over. The Een souls on the bridge suddenly decreased by half, but in just a moment, these Een souls were filled with even more Een souls. Ning Qing took in a deep breath. He did not know what this giant mouth was, but he immediately thought of the burial shadow demon. If Ba Meng was swallowed by this huge mouth, he would definitely die. In any case, he was indebted to Ba Meng. If it weren't for Ba Meng, his cultivation would never have been able to advance to the late-stage Dao modeling in such a short time. Besides, they were still in a team. Seeing that Ba Meng was in danger, Ning Qing did not hesitate to rush over to the soul-crossing bridge. He knew very well why Ba Meng was unable to resist. Ba Meng himself had said that once he crossed the soul bridge, his cultivation would be greatly suppressed. Ba Meng was already very lucky that he was not crushed into pieces or teleported away. First bridge of coping. Landing on the soul-crossing bridge, Ning Qing brought out the first bridge of coping just as the overwhelming law pressure came crashing down. This time, he didn't even bring out the 7 Bridges Realm book. Who knew what would happen in this place? If something happened and he lost the 7 Bridges Realm book, it would truly be depressing. As soon as he brought out the first bridge of coping, the endless Een souls seemed to have found an organization and frantically rushed towards the first bridge of coping. Violent nether winds also swept towards the first bridge of coping, mixing with the first bridge of coping's original nether wind and blood river. After the first bridge of coping swallowed the endless nether winds and Een souls, it didn't weaken. Instead, it strengthened. Ning Qing suddenly felt an impulse in his heart. How long would it take him to condense the 7 Bridges spirit technique in the nether dark realm? This place seemed much better than the burial shadow blue sand. Once he successfully condensed the 7 Bridges spirit technique, he might not even need to bring out the 5-colored star splitter arrow to kill someone like Ding Si. Crack! Before Ning Qing could finish his fantasies, the majestic law aura slammed into Ning Qing's body. Even if Ning Qing was a body-forging cultivator, he could feel his bones starting to break. At this moment, Ning Qing couldn't care about anything else. He grabbed Ba Meng, who was struggling at the bridge's head, and retreated frantically. As soon as they left the soul bridge, the powerful law suppression instantly weakened. Ba Meng's strength recovered, and he fell to the ground and stared at Ning Cheng blankly. You have a Dao sculpting cultivation, yet you managed to safely retreat from the soul-crossing bridge and even saved me? That spirit technique you just used, was it the first bridge of coping of the 7 bridges? Ning Cheng nodded. In his heart, he was thinking about the feasibility of perfecting the 7 bridges spirit technique on the soul-crossing bridge, and at the same time, how dangerous it would be. Ba Meng apparently didn't want to understand it further. After asking Ning Cheng a question, he looked at the soul-crossing bridge in a daze and muttered, "It's useless. With such a powerful soul cultivator here, Ba Luo's soul has already dissipated. Even if it condenses again, it wouldn't have any consciousness." Soul cultivator? Ning Cheng asked with a frown. Ba Meng didn't answer Ning Cheng's words. He remained silent for a few minutes before returning to his senses and speaking to Ning Cheng. Yes, a soul cultivator. When the Nether Dark Realm's laws were perfected, once these soul cultivators reached a certain level and didn't reincarnate, they would be squeezed into nothingness by the laws. But now that the Nether Dark Realm's laws have shattered, more and more powerful soul cultivators have appeared. The one we saw just now is one of them. They devour Yin souls to grow, and the further they grow, the lower their consciousness becomes, but the more powerful they become. Looking at Ba Meng's dazed look, Ning Cheng took out a jade bottle and handed it to Ba Meng. "Dao friend Ba Meng, I'm indebted to you for giving me the dragon cleansing pool. I'll give you this medicinal pill in return." Ba Meng subconsciously took the jade bottle. Only when he held the jade bottle in his hands did he react. He didn't even open the jade bottle before returning it to Ning Cheng. "Dao friend Ning, many thanks. I don't have any use for this medicinal pill now. I, Ba Meng, have lived on the edge of the Grand Essence Sea for so many years. Although I lost my son, it doesn't mean that I'm going to suffer a blow." Ning Cheng showed a faint smile. "Dao friend Ba Meng, I know. I suggest you open the jade bottle and have a look. If it really doesn't have any use for you, you can return it to me." Ba Meng opened the jade bottle in doubt, and then exclaimed in shock, "Is this a 6-yin soul pill, or a top-quality one? How can you have this? By the way, your friend also took the 6-yin soul pill." Ba Meng clenched the jade bottle with both hands. His heart was already filled with ecstasy, and even his words became incoherent. "Is this medicinal pill useful to you?" Although Ba Meng didn't give him the dragon cleansing pool, Ning Cheng still felt grateful in his heart. After this matter, he felt confident that he could take another step forward through the dragon cleansing pool. Ba Meng bowed to Ning Cheng. "Dao friend Ning, you just saved my life, and now you've saved my son's life. This great kindness I, Ba Meng, really don't know how to repay it." Ning Cheng patted Ba Meng's shoulder. "You gave me the dragon cleansing pool, which is much more valuable than a 6-yin soul pill." Ba Meng spoke up with some embarrassment. "Dao friend Ning, you know, even if I didn't give you the dragon cleansing pool, I can't take it away. But I owe you a favor." Ning Cheng spoke with caution. Ba Meng carefully put away the 6-yin soul pill, took out a spiritual sense jade strip and handed it to Ning Cheng. "Dao friend Ning, if you need this Ba Meng's help in the future, no matter where I am, I will not refuse. Also, after we go out this time, I will not return to the dragon cleansing pool. That place will belong to you from now on." Ning Cheng felt very satisfied. There was still more than a year before the 5 Realms pill competition. With the help of the dragon cleansing pool, maybe he could take another step forward in his cultivation. "Dao friend Ning, let's leave this place. There are still some dangers before crossing the soul bridge, and our strength is still too low." Ba Meng had long since revived, and his mood had also turned cheerful. Ning Cheng smiled. "Dao friend Ba Meng, you should leave first. Wait for me at the place where the boundary breaks. I can perfect my first bridge here. Once I finish perfecting it, I will immediately come back." Ba Meng, who had seen Ning Cheng's first bridge before, nodded. "Then you have to be careful. You can stay at the front of the soul crossing bridge, but don't go in." After watching Ba Meng leave, Ning Cheng once again carefully stepped onto the soul crossing bridge. The first time was to save Ba Meng, and this time he wanted to perfect the 7 bridges spirit technique. As soon as he stepped onto the soul crossing bridge, a horrifying power of laws rumbled over. Ning Cheng had long since prepared for it. The moment he brought out the first bridge of coping, he immediately started to operate the body forging cultivation method. The horrifying underworld laws crushed down, and under the operation of Ning Cheng's cultivation method, it instantly transformed into his physical strength. Ning Cheng was pleasantly surprised to find that using the crushing power of laws to temper his body was much more effective than using the volcano or thunder tribulation to temper his body. Sure enough, invisible forces had a much better effect than physical force. Ning Cheng simply regarded the straightforward body forging of the flame thunder tribulation as a physical body forging. Ning Cheng didn't have time to savor this joy when the endless Yin spirits rushed over. First bridge of coping, start. Ning Cheng didn't come here to temper his body. He came here to perfect the 7 bridges spirit technique. When these Yin spirits swarmed into the first bridge of coping, Ning Cheng brought out the second bridge of looking home, the third bridge of forgetting river, and the fourth bridge of yellow springs. The first 3 bridges had already started to solidify, and the fourth bridge of yellow springs also started to solidify rapidly after the endless Yin spirits and Yin Qi poured into it. Not only that, but Ning Cheng also found that the underworld laws of heaven and earth had a similar solidifying effect on his 7 bridges. They both condensed the 7 bridges' divine art. Because this place had the laws of the underworld, it was countless times better than the burial shadow blue sand. Under the Tao charm of the 4 bridges, Ning Cheng felt less and less pressure. This wouldn't do. In addition to perfecting the 7 bridges, he also came here to temper his body. Ning Cheng deliberately took a few more steps forward. A sharp edge silently pierced into Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness paused for a moment. The next moment, Ning Cheng realized that he had fallen into a trap. Kaka. Ning Cheng had just realized that he had fallen into a trap when the first bridge of coping shattered under an extremely cold and gloomy law force. At the same time, the law force pressing down on his body suddenly increased in strength. Kachakuth. Even if Ning Cheng tried to be careful, his bones still broke inch by inch, and an arrow of blood spurted out. Chapter 10:15. It was the soul cultivator. When his sea of consciousness suffered a sneak attack from the Yin soul thorn, Ning Cheng immediately understood the reason behind it. He was the soul cultivator Ba Meng had told him about. He hadn't seen him on the soul bridge before, and had assumed that he wouldn't show up on the other side of the soul bridge. He hadn't expected the soul cultivator to be so smart that he knew how to sneak up on him. Sure enough, the everlasting blue thunder fort in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness had just blocked the Yin soul sting, when a shadow immediately rushed towards Ning Cheng. It did not use any magical techniques or spiritual techniques, just a simple movement towards Ning Cheng. It was just a simple movement, but it made Ning Cheng gasp for breath. It wasn't the coercion that was powerful, but the rule pressure brought by this shadow. Ning Cheng felt shocked in his heart. This soul cultivator's use of the dark nether realm's laws shocked him. If he could use the laws to suppress his opponent like this shadow, why would he need to master any sacred art? He could just use the laws to go over. The first bridge of coping had shattered, while the second bridge of homesickness had been bound. Fortunately, his third bridge of forgetfulness hadn't been suppressed yet. Third Forgotten River Bridge. Ning Cheng directly swept up the third Forgotten River Bridge. The bridge of the river of forgetfulness is a long journey. When you come, the river of forgetfulness will disappear. The grayish misty bridge swept up the dense Tao rime of the river of forgetfulness. The Tao rime rolled up and directly swept the soul cultivator who was pouncing over to the bridgehead. Before the bridge of forgetfulness could fully form, the soul cultivator was stuck on the bridge for only a moment, then began to struggle madly. The river of forgetfulness bridge, which had not fully solidified, began to shake. The misty fog of the river of forgetfulness gradually thinned. Ning Cheng took advantage of this moment, and drove out the Yin soul sting from his sea of consciousness. Before the soul cultivator could leave the bridge of forgetfulness, Yang Qi activated the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge. Ning Cheng only had a vague outline of the Yellow Springs Bridge. However, Ning Cheng believed that it would be difficult to kill this soul cultivator without using the Yellow Springs Bridge. One of the benefits of using the Yellow Springs Bridge in the Dark Nether Realm was that one could borrow the violent Inchi here and the laws of the Dark Nether Realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to summon the Yellow Springs Bridge. The Yellow Springs Bridge quickly absorbed the laws of the Dark Nether Realm, and the billowing Nether Wind aura, under Ning Cheng's deliberate control, swept into the Yellow Springs Bridge. The Yellow Springs Bridge was set up in an instant, and a yellow, rolling river became clear. This yellow, rolling river slowly wrapped around the Yellow Springs Bridge. The green body of the Yellow Springs Bridge was slowly revealed at this moment. Streams of Yellow Springs Taoist rhymes circled around the bridge and the Yellow River. Even if Ning Cheng brought out the Yellow Springs Bridge, Ning Cheng couldn't control it now. This bridge's power of laws didn't come from his spirit technique laws, nor was it from the Seven Bridges Realm book. Instead, it drew support from the underworld realm's laws of heaven and earth. Boom! The Soul Cultivator broke free from Ning Cheng's incomplete third Forgetting River Bridge. Before the Soul Cultivator could recover, the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge covered him. In the boundless Yellow Springs, there is no good or evil. The soul turns to dust, the spirit is lost. The surging Yellow Springs Taoist rhymes and the Yellow River that wrapped around the Yellow Springs Bridge roared at this moment. The Soul Cultivator who charged into the Yellow Springs Bridge didn't even have the strength to resist before he was swept away by the terrifying Taoist rhymes and disappeared into the roaring Yellow River. Sitting on the ground, Ning Cheng stared blankly at the roaring Yellow Springs Bridge suspended in the sky, feeling a chill in his heart. Ning Cheng had seen with his own eyes how terrifying that Soul Cultivator was. Even his third Forgetting River Bridge couldn't stop it. Ning Cheng didn't expect that the Soul Cultivator would die in the blink of an eye after rushing into the Yellow Springs Bridge. Was the Yellow Springs Bridge this powerful? If Ning Cheng truly felt that the Yellow Springs Bridge was this powerful, then it wouldn't have mattered. But Ning Cheng found that even he couldn't control the Yellow Springs Bridge now. After devouring a powerful Soul Cultivator, the Yellow Springs Bridge's green body became even clearer, and the Yellow River that wrapped around the Yellow Springs Bridge grew even more majestic. The Taoist rhyme aura and the power of laws swirled together like a roaring flood. No matter how many Yin souls there were, no matter how many Yin winds there were, all of them were swept away by the Yellow Springs Bridge. Ning Cheng felt a chill in his heart because he couldn't control his spirit technique. At this moment, the Yellow Springs Bridge wasn't condensed by his own strength. Instead, it was formed by the Underworld Realm's laws and the Underworld Realm's endless Yin souls and Yin Qi. Fortunately, most of the power of laws had been swept away by the Yellow Springs Bridge, which greatly reduced the pressure on Ning Cheng. He endured the pain and swallowed a healing pill. He couldn't let the Yellow Springs Bridge go out of control. The reason why he could bring out the Yellow Springs Bridge was because of the Seven Bridges Realm book. Once the Yellow Springs Bridge went out of control, the Seven Bridges Realm book might disappear. At that time, even his life might be in danger. Under the surging Tao charm of the Yellow Springs Bridge, Ning Cheng's cracked bones gradually recovered. Ning Cheng carefully put away the Futility Bridge, Looking Home Bridge, and Forgetting River Bridge. He then focused all his energy on the Yellow Springs Bridge. After devouring a large number of Yin souls and laws, the Yellow Springs Bridge grew stronger and more solid. Ning Cheng sat motionless and carefully integrated his spiritual sense into the Yellow Springs Bridge. He wanted to take control of the Yellow Springs Bridge again. The underworld laws finally overflowed from the Yellow Springs Bridge and fell on Ning Cheng. At first, the laws were weak, but they grew stronger and stronger. Ning Cheng not only wanted to integrate his spiritual sense into the Yellow Springs Bridge, but he also wanted to forcibly transform the strengthened laws into his own body-forging strength. Perhaps only Ning Cheng could use the laws of heaven and earth to suppress one's body forging. Ning Cheng's body grew stronger and stronger. But even so, Ning Cheng still couldn't resist the violent increase in the pressure of the laws of heaven and earth. Crack! When Ning Cheng advanced to the full circle of the starry sky body, his bones once again crushed into pieces. Although his body-forging body advanced, the damage to his body kept increasing. He couldn't let this continue. If this continued, he might end up being crushed into meat paste. Ning Cheng no longer cared about the Yellow Springs Bridge. He suddenly opened his eyes. Even without the Yellow Springs Bridge, he couldn't go on like this. But when Ning Cheng opened his eyes, he suddenly froze. He wasn't on the Soul Bridge at all. Instead, he was in a gray world. He sat on the Yellow Springs Bridge. The Yellow Springs Bridge was wrapped in a huge yellow river and slowly moved towards the depths of this gray world. Ning Cheng's face instantly turned pale. No wonder his body grew stronger and stronger, but the pressure he felt grew stronger. He had already left the Soul Bridge and entered the depths of the Nether Shadow Realm. If not for the Yellow Springs Bridge blocking his head, the terrifying laws would have already killed him. Retreat, hurry up and retreat. Ning Cheng frantically ordered the Yellow Springs Bridge to retreat. However, the Yellow Springs Bridge continued to slowly enter the depths of the Nether Shadow Realm. Ning Cheng's face turned blue. His spiritual consciousness swept out and grabbed the Seven Bridges Realm book suspended in the air. Then, he pressed his hand on the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge and pressed his spiritual consciousness over. The uncontrollable Yellow Springs Bridge finally stopped under his control. At least, it didn't continue to move deeper. Ning Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. The Dark Nether Spirit Devourer immediately surrounded the Yellow Springs Bridge. At the same time, his entire consciousness fell on the Yellow Springs Bridge. The reason he couldn't control the Yellow Springs Bridge wasn't because of others, but because his strength was too low. He forcibly brought out the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge. As a result, the Yellow Springs Bridge went beyond his control with the help of the Nether Shadow Realm's law power. If Ning Cheng didn't take control measures, the Yellow Springs Bridge he brought out would merge with the entire Nether Shadow Realm and disappear. As for Ning Cheng, he would only turn into a puddle of flesh and eventually disappear. As time passed by in Ning Cheng's crazy struggle for control, Ning Cheng slowly ground away the law power pulling the Yellow Springs Bridge. At the same time, the Yellow Springs Bridge also slowly eased under Ning Cheng's struggle. The tumbling Yellow River also gradually calmed down. Although the Cyan Bridge grew clearer and clearer, it also grew softer and softer, no longer as violent as before. Ning Cheng sighed, and the Yellow Springs Bridge quietly floated over his head. The Yellow River wrapped around the Yellow Springs Bridge no longer roared and tumbled. Ning Cheng once again blocked the Nether Shadow Realm's law power, and Ning Cheng's broken bones slowly reassembled. With his starry sky body reaching perfection, the Yellow Springs Bridge completely solidified. Ning Cheng suddenly stood up, his heart filled with joy. Because he had brought out the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge without knowing its depth, the Nether Shadow Realm's law power almost killed him. Fortunately, he managed to regain the Yellow Springs Bridge with his powerful sea of consciousness and the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer. At the same time, his body forging once again reached perfection of the starry sky body. The Grand Essence Dragon Washing Pond truly lived up to its reputation. If he hadn't bathed in the Grand Essence Dragon Washing Pond for a while, Ning Cheng wasn't sure if he could withstand the law pressure. Although the law pressure was still very strong, he could barely survive with the help of the Yellow Springs Bridge. Ning Cheng stepped off the Yellow Springs Bridge and let the Yellow Springs Bridge float over his head before carefully retreating. He didn't dare to put away the Yellow Springs Bridge. With his current cultivation, if he put away the Yellow Springs Bridge, the powerful laws of the Grand Essence Nether Realm would immediately crush him into slag. As for condensing the fifth reincarnation bridge, Ning Cheng gave up on it. He had almost lost control of the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge. If he condensed the fifth reincarnation bridge here, he feared that he would end up making a wedding dress for someone else. Making a wedding dress for someone else was a trivial matter. Moreover, his life would also remain in the Grand Essence Nether Realm. Ning Cheng calculated the time. After he entered the Soul Bridge, half a month had already passed because of the Yellow Springs Bridge. Now that a month had passed, Ba Meng must have thought that he had fallen in the Nether Shadow Realm. From the looks of it, he would have to find another way to leave the Nether Shadow Realm. 16 fruit. Ning Cheng had just taken a few steps back when he saw a fruit tree. On a small gray tree that was only 3 feet tall, there were 3 grayish-white fruits growing alone. Ning Cheng had refined the 16 soul pill before, so he naturally knew that these were the 16 fruits. The reason why Green Lady and Chiu Yuani came to the Nether Shadow Realm was to find this Dao fruit. The 6-yin fruit was a Dao essence Dao fruit, so Ning Cheng naturally wouldn't be polite. He directly took out a jade box and put away the 3 6-yin fruits. Ning Cheng had just put away the 6-yin fruits when a man wearing a tall crown suddenly appeared not far from Ning Cheng. He looked at Ning Cheng in amazement before his eyes fell on the 4th Yellow Springs Bridge above Ning Cheng's head in disbelief. Ning Cheng's heart turned cold. He immediately took a few steps back and quietly stared at the man with the tall crown in front of him. He couldn't even protect himself here. If the other party attacked him, he would definitely die. Chapter 1016. The Crown Man's gaze moved from the 4th Yellow Springs Bridge to Ning Cheng, and Ning Cheng saw a hint of fear in his eyes. Afraid of him? Ning Cheng was very puzzled in his heart, but he immediately understood. This was the Dark Nether Realm, where there was a strong suppression of the rules. Those with lower strength would be like Ba Meng, being oppressed by the rules to the point of being unable to resist. But now, he looked very relaxed, at least on the surface. There was also the extremely eye-catching 4th Yellow Springs Bridge above his head, so the other party was afraid of him. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng became even calmer, and one could not see any panic in his eyes. At the same time, he began to carefully size up the man in front of him. He could not tell the man's age. He wore a green crown on his head and his face was a little pale. Ning Cheng quickly discovered something different. This man's crown exuded a burst of Dao charm aura. Ning Cheng understood that this fellow's high crown had a similar function to his Yellow Springs Bridge, which was to offset part of the law pressure of the Dark Nether Realm. No wonder he was so calm even though he was wearing a green hat. This guy's green hat was not ordinary. Is this the 4th of the 7 bridges, the Yellow Springs Bridge? The man with the crown finally spoke. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile and nodded without any care. Yes, it is indeed the Yellow Springs Bridge. I'm truly impressed that the Yellow Springs Bridge has solidified to this extent. My name is Chu Chen. How should I address this Dao friend? The man with the tall hat even cupped his fists towards Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng deliberately exposed a vigilant look in his eyes and did not answer Chu Chen's words. Since this person was afraid of him, then he would just let him be afraid of him. Ning Cheng did not want to send someone to report his name. Speaking of which, he was quite famous. If this guy heard of his name, it would not be a good thing. He had the 7 Bridges Divine Art and everyone wanted the 7 Bridges Divine Art. Seeing the vigilance in Ning Cheng's eyes, Chu Chen did not care about it, and continued, Is this Dao friend here to look for the 6-yin fruit? That's right, I am indeed here to look for the 6-yin fruit. Ning Cheng did not deny it. The other party had already seen that he had obtained the 3 6-yin fruits, as such there was no need to deny it. You have good strength. Are you interested in going to the depths of the Dark Nether Realm with me and joining hands to do something big? Chu Chen stared at Ning Cheng and spoke with a smile. Chu Chen's strength was definitely higher than his own. At a glance, Ning Cheng could tell that Chu Chen was coveting his 7 bridges. How could Ning Cheng team up with Chu Chen to enter the depths of the dark underworld? He flatly refused. I'm very sorry, I've already found what I wanted, and I want to leave. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the way out and ended up wandering around here for more than 10 years. You've been here for more than 10 years. Chu Chen was shocked. To be able to stay in the Dark Nether Realm for more than 10 years was quite amazing. The law pressure here was too strong. The longer one stayed, the more dangerous it would be. Ning Cheng gave a deep nod. Looking at his gloomy face, no one would believe that Ning Cheng had been here for less than 2 months. Chu Chen frowned as his gaze swept over Ning Cheng's body a few times, before he spoke. You only have the 4th bridge? Ning Cheng's face sank, and the yellow river over the Yellow Springs Bridge started to churn once again. At the same time, bursts of Dao charms started to flash over the river. Since the other party was afraid of him, he had to put on an act. Dao friend Chu seems to be very interested in my Yellow Springs Bridge. Ning Cheng's voice carried a hint of coldness. Sure enough, when he saw Ning Cheng's Yellow Springs Bridge's Dao charm churning, Chu Chen quickly took a few steps back and stared at Ning Cheng with vigilance. Dao friend, please don't misunderstand. I'm saying that if you have the other bridges, you can enter the depths of the dark nether realm to condense the 7 bridges spirit technique. The best place to condense the 7 bridges spirit technique is the dark nether realm. Moreover, in the depths of the dark nether realm, there is the most powerful 7th reincarnation bridge. I heard that to condense the 7th reincarnation bridge, one must go to this place in the dark nether realm. Ning Cheng replied with a calm voice, "No need, I've already finished condensing it." Although he looked calm on the surface, Ning Cheng had already started to think about how to go to the dark nether realm to condense the 7th reincarnation bridge in the future. He didn't think that Chu Chen's words were false. Chu Chen had no reason to lie to him in this regard. It's just that he definitely wouldn't go there now. With his cultivation, once he entered the depths of the dark nether realm, he would only be courting death. More importantly, he had to leave Chu Chen as soon as possible. This person was too dangerous. When Chu Chen heard Ning Cheng say that he had already condensed the 7th reincarnation bridge, he felt even more fear in his heart. If it were any other place, he would have already taken action. But in this place, he couldn't casually test a person with the Yellow Springs Bridge. Even if he doubted Ning Cheng's words, he didn't dare to try. The laws of the Dark Nether Realm were too powerful, and it would be very troublesome to escape from these laws. Once he was suppressed by the other party, he might not be able to escape from the other party's Yellow Springs Bridge. In fact, it's very simple to leave the Dark Nether Realm. As long as you are in a place where the laws are weak, you can give up all resistance to the laws and then use your own Dao charm to resist it. The Dark Nether Realm's laws of heaven and earth will directly teleport you away. Of course, the location of the teleportation is not very clear. Chu Chen seemed to want to ease the atmosphere between him and Ning Cheng, so he took the initiative to talk about a way to leave the Dark Nether Realm. Ning Cheng looked at Chu Chen with some doubts. He wasn't sure if Chu Chen was trying to harm him or not. "Dao friend Chu, I heard from my friend that once the laws of the Dark Nether Realm are suppressed and blasted away, it's very likely that one would be crushed to pieces with their spiritual soul destroyed." Why did Dao friend Chu say that this is the way to leave the Dark Nether Realm? Chu Chen laughed. "Your friend's cultivation shouldn't be too high, right? I'm sure your friend can't stand up in the Dark Nether Realm at all. With his cultivation, using my method would naturally be courting death. You and I are both people who can come and go at will in the Dark Nether Realm, so we can naturally use this rule. As long as we use nomological power to resist, we'll be swept away by the nomological power." He was even more suspicious of Ning Cheng. If Ning Cheng was truly powerful, then how could he have such a poor cultivation as a friend? Moreover, his own understanding of the Dark Nether Realm was very shallow. "Many thanks, Dao friend Chu. Let's meet again if fate wills it," Ning Cheng said, before turning around to leave. He didn't know that this person's words had made Chu Chen even more suspicious of him. Seeing Ning Cheng leave, Chu Chen's complexion fluctuated for a while, as he became more and more hesitant in his heart. He not only feared that Ning Cheng could walk through this place as if nothing had happened, but he also feared the 4th Yellow Springs Bridge over Ning Cheng's head. The 7 Bridges' divine art was even more powerful in the Dark Nether Realm. He knew this very well. It was precisely because he knew that the 7 Bridges spirit technique was powerful and terrifying that he wanted to obtain the 7 Bridges spirit technique from Ning Cheng. If he could obtain the 7 Bridges spirit technique, then he could condense the 7 Bridges in the Dark Nether Realm. When he came out in the future, Chu Chen, moreover, if this cultivator with the Yellow Springs Bridge wasn't very powerful, then wouldn't he have made a fortune? Thinking of this, Chu Chen's heart grew more and more eager. He suddenly took a step towards Ning Cheng, and at the same time, opened his hands, and 2 dazzling lightning arcs blasted towards Ning Cheng. The lightning arcs blasted out, bringing with it a ripple of laws that completely locked down Ning Cheng's surroundings. At the same time, Chu Chen flicked his wrist, and a talisman stuck to his wrist. Once Ning Cheng's strength truly surpassed his, he would immediately escape with the talisman. Although a talisman was very precious, it was not as precious as the 7 Bridges spirit technique. Although Ning Cheng wanted to retreat quickly, his mind was always on guard against the green hat Chu Chen. He felt sure that his strength and Chu Chen's were worlds apart. Chu Chen only feared him because he was frightened by the Yellow Springs Bridge over his head. The moment Chu Chen made his move, Ning Qing knew that it was going to be bad, but he wasn't scared. His heart sank. This fellow really wanted his Seven Bridges spirit technique. What made Ning Qing feel slightly relieved was that this fellow was a thunder-attributed cultivator. Although these 2 lightning arcs were powerful, they couldn't kill him. According to Chu Chen's thoughts, after he brought out the 2 tentative lightning arcs, Ning Qing would definitely use the futility bridge over his head to block his lightning arcs and then counterattack. At this time, he would be able to see through Ning Qing's strength. Once Ning Qing's strength surpassed his, he would immediately escape. If Ning Qing's strength wasn't much higher than his, he would have gone all out. What made Chu Chen miscalculate was that Ning Qing didn't resist his lightning arcs at all. Instead, he immediately put away the 4th Yellow Springs Bridge and let the lightning arcs hit him. Catcha, catcha. The 2 lightning arcs struck Ning Qing's body, causing bursts of bone-cracking sounds. If someone else saw this, they would have thought that Ning Qing was struck by lightning arcs. But only Ning Qing knew that the 2 lightning arcs had limited damage to him. He was suppressed by the powerful laws here. If not for these laws, he could have refined these lightning arcs. Is this fellow a paper tiger? Chu Chen instantly understood, and his face turned even paler. He then rushed towards Ning Qing without hesitation. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. He shouldn't have probed. He should have directly grabbed Ning Qing and searched his soul to refine it. After Ning Qing took away the Yellow Springs Bridge, the powerful law pressure crushed Ning Qing's bones. At the same time, Ning Qing's body started to glow with the Dao charm of the laws of space. Just as Chu Qi said, the terrifying law power of the dark nether realm crushed Ning Qing's bones. After meeting Ning Qing's Dao charm of the laws, it directly sucked Ning Qing into the void and instantly disappeared. I hate it. Chu Chen stared at the void where Ning Qing disappeared and clenched his fists. How could he just hate it? If he had to say something, he would definitely say it to the void that sucked Ning Qing away. I once had a peerless opportunity in front of me, but I didn't cherish it. If this opportunity came again, the opportunity wouldn't come again. What he hated was not only that he didn't cherish this opportunity, but also that he personally told Ning Qing how to leave the dark nether realm. Although he knew that Ning Qing would be crushed by the law power of the Grand Essence Dark Nether Realm after entering the void, he still felt endless regret and disappointment in his heart. Bang! A shadow slammed into a void airship, causing the airship's restrictions to shake. What's that? The blue-robed girl standing at the bow of the airship asked in surprise. A middle-aged man next to her had already swept out with his spiritual consciousness and replied, "It's a cultivator. This cultivator is seriously injured and should have lost his autonomy. As a result, he ended up crashing into our airship. This person's body is really tough. Even after being hit by our airship's restrictions, he didn't turn into pieces. This fellow really deserved it. He scared me." The blue-robed girl patted her chest and made a frightened look. The yellow-robed girl sitting at the bow of the airship sighed and said, "Since we met, let's save his life. Zhuozhong, bring that person here and let me have a look." "Yes, Mississippi." The middle-aged man quickly stepped out of the airship. In just a short time, he caught up with the unconscious figure floating in the void. Then, with a wave of his hand, he grabbed the figure and landed on the bow of the void airship. Chapter 10:17. "Miss, I'm afraid this person can't be saved. He seems to have been injured by rule force. All his bones are broken, and his essence spirit is unconscious. He has fallen into a state of chaos. I'm afraid." The blue-robed girl looked at the person Zhuozhong placed on the bow and shook her head. Zhuozhong didn't speak. Apparently, he had already seen through the situation. If it weren't for the Miss's instructions, he wouldn't have brought this person to the ship. Being injured by rule force was completely different from ordinary external injuries. After being injured by rule force, it was almost impossible to recover. In other words, the bones of the person he brought would definitely not be able to recover. What's more, would the essence spirit fall into chaos? In the best-case scenario, he would turn into an idiot after waking up. No, It should be said that after waking up, he would turn into an idiot with only broken bones. The yellow-robed girl also came over. She stepped down and placed her hand on Ning Cheng's forehead for a while before letting out a sigh. He was indeed injured by the power of laws. Zhuozhong, take him to the warehouse. After the ship goes ashore, find a place for him to settle down. It's fate that we met. This is all we can do to help. Yes, Mississippi, Zhuozhong responded and left with the people he had rescued. Miss, this person's sea of consciousness should be broken. I don't know where he went. The rule force is so powerful. The blue-robed girl saw Zhuozhong take the person away and spoke with some confusion. The yellow-robed girl pondered for a moment before speaking. This side of the void, there are too many strange things. We have to be cautious. Your cultivation has been stagnant. After going home, you will have to go into seclusion for a while. Seeing that the blue-robed girl was about to speak, the yellow-robed girl raised her hand and stopped her. Mo Yuan, I also have to go into seclusion for a while. Leave the business to my brother. With Zhuozhong's help, there shouldn't be any problems. The injured person placed in the warehouse by Zhuozhong was naturally Ning Cheng, but Ning Cheng was unconscious at this time. The warehouse was a storeroom in the void airship, and it was also the place where the airship's spiritual source was located. After Zhuozhong put Ning Cheng in the warehouse, he immediately left. He didn't check Ning Cheng's body. At this time, in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, the mysterious yellow origin was scouring the sea of consciousness. After an unknown amount of time, Ning Cheng opened his eyes. The first thing Ning Cheng did when he opened his eyes was to stretch out his spiritual consciousness. He found himself in a void spaceship's warehouse. When he saw that there were still 7 cultivators in the flying ship, he was completely relieved. He should have been saved by the people on this flying ship. He was secretly glad that he had tempered his body again in the dragon cleansing pool. Otherwise, when he was blasted away by the powerful laws of the Dark Nether Realm, it would have been difficult for him to survive. Under that kind of law, there was no way to use magic treasures to resist at all. They could only use their physical bodies to resist. At this time, Ning Cheng felt sure that Green Hat had lied to him. Leaving the Dark Nether Realm was not possible through the pressure of the laws. Even Tao Essence Divine Emperor would be crushed by the laws of the Abyssal Realm as long as he wasn't a body refinement expert. Even if one could escape through this nomological pressure, only a sacred emperor at the primordial Tao and above would be able to do so. Speaking of which, did Tao integration stage holy emperors or chaotic essence holy emperors have to purposely be forced to leave by the laws? Green Hat truly was insidious. Previously, he thought that Ning Cheng was strong, so he wanted to use this method to kill him. This fellow was simply black-bellied. The two of them had no enmity. Even if he killed Ning Cheng this way, Green Hat wouldn't be able to get his treasures. Yet, Green Hat chose to do such a thing that harmed others without benefiting himself. Unfortunately, Green Hat would never have imagined that Ning Cheng was a body refinement expert who had cleansed his body in the dragon cleansing pool. Moreover, he even had a full-circle starry sky body. Not only that, but his full-circle starry sky body was also tempered by the laws of the Dark Nether Realm. The combination of these factors allowed him to keep his life. Ning Cheng took out a few medicinal pills and swallowed them. Whether his bones broke or his sea of consciousness injured, he didn't feel afraid. He was a body refinement expert with a starry sky body and had the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. Even if his body was injured by the Dark Nether Realm's laws, he could refine these laws and transform them into physical strength. Half a month later, Ning Cheng completely refined the laws that harmed his body. At the same time, his sea of consciousness, which had been damaged by the Dark Nether Realm's laws, also completely recovered. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness fell into the true spirit world. Yanji was still in secluded cultivation and didn't know about his injuries. Ning Cheng felt slightly relieved and started to condense his spirit essence. Although he almost lost his life in the Dark Nether Realm this time, his harvest was not bad. Not only did he successfully condense the 3rd bridge of forgetfulness, but he also condensed the 4th bridge of Yellow Springs. Moreover, his body-forging cultivation had also reached the late stage of the starry sky body. Moreover, it was an enhanced version. As for the 316 fruits, it was a pleasant surprise. More importantly, he knew about the existence of the grand essence underworld. The seventh samsara bridge could only be condensed in the depths of the underworld. His current strength was still low. After he reached the second step of Tao validation and advanced to the primordial Tao, he would definitely make a trip to the dark nether realm. After condensing his spirit essence in this warehouse for a few days, Ning Cheng finally stood up and pushed open the door of the warehouse. He wanted to go out and thank the other party for saving him before leaving this void ship. "Hey, you actually stood up? No, your cultivation has also recovered, this. A blue-robed girl came over and stared at Ning Cheng with wide eyes, her face filled with disbelief. Ning Cheng cupped his fists and said, "Many thanks, junior apprentice sister, for saving me." Ning Cheng didn't know the age of this blue-robed girl, but she didn't look old. Plus, she was only at the late-stage eternal realm, so he simply addressed her as junior apprentice sister. The blue-robed girl quickly waved her hand. "No need, no need." After saying no, she rushed out. Ning Cheng could hear her talking about her recovery from the inside of the cabin. Her exaggerated tone made Ning Cheng wonder if she was an eternal-level starry sky emperor. "Many thanks, senior apprentice sister and elder brother, for saving me." Ning Cheng walked up and thanked the yellow-robed girl with cupped fists. "Did you really recover?" The yellow-robed girl also stared at Ning Cheng in shock. His corporeal body, which had been damaged by the power of laws, had not only fully recovered, but also in such a short time. It was simply unimaginable. Only the middle-aged man who brought Ning Cheng back kept looking at Ning Cheng. The shock in his heart was no less than that of the two girls. Ning Cheng had to speak up again. "It's because of my good luck that I refined my body. That's why I recovered so quickly." This yellow-robed girl had a delicate appearance and looked gentle and soft. After hearing Ning Cheng's words, she didn't ask any more questions, but her eyes still showed surprise. Ning Cheng also didn't explain anymore. If he hadn't tempered his body with the laws of the dark nether realm, it would have been difficult for him to recover so quickly. Just when Ning Cheng wanted to say goodbye, the blue-robed girl suddenly called out in surprise, "Big Brother Su is here to pick us up." When the blue-robed girl said those words, Ning Cheng and the others also saw it. The yellow-robed girl rushed to the front of the airship with a look of surprise. Before the flight-type weapon in the distance could come over, she opened the restrictions. Seeing this, Ning Cheng had no choice but to leave the words of farewell behind. As soon as the airship's restrictions opened, a slender figure landed at the front of the airship. It was a young man with long hair and a late-stage Tao sculpting cultivation. From the looks of it, he wasn't weak. "Shiqian, you've worked hard this time. I'll accompany you next time." The man spoke in a gentle tone, with a hint of pity. The yellow-robed girl's face blushed slightly, but she still couldn't hide her joy. "Big Brother Su, every time I ask you to pick me up, it takes up a lot of your time." The man smiled and patted the yellow-robed girl's long hair. "Shiqian, you're talking nonsense again. What's there to delay between you and me? How this is?" As the man spoke, he saw Ning Cheng standing on the side and asked with some doubt. "My name is Ning Cheng. I was injured in the void. Many thanks to the two junior apprentice sisters and this big brother for saving me." Ning Cheng quickly stepped forward and cupped his fists. Since he was rescued, he naturally wouldn't use a fake name to fool people. "Yes, our airship saw him on the way. He was seriously injured at that time and hit our airship's restrictions. Miss asked Zhuozhong to save him, and he recovered well. This has nothing to do with us," the blue-robed girl quickly said. When the long-haired man heard that he was rescued, he also cupped his fists towards Ning Cheng and said, "My name is Su Yen, and we're about to reach home. If Dao friend Ning doesn't mind, you can come to my Su clan's corner. Because I've been in seclusion, I really don't know where the Su clan's corner is." Ning Cheng said apologetically. He naturally saw that Su Yen didn't really want to invite him, but because the yellow-robed girl saved him. So, he just casually said those words out of politeness. Ning Cheng said those words purely to inquire about the location. He wanted to know where the laws had sent him. After he said his name, Su Yen and the others didn't show any special expressions. Ning Cheng understood that they hadn't heard of him. This made Ning Cheng a little worried. He feared that after coming out of the Dark Nether realm, he would be too far away from the Grand Essence realm. If he was still in the void outside the Grand Essence realm, he would have to ask for directions and leave. But if he left the Grand Essence realm, he could only go to the Su clan's corner. At the very least, he had to figure out how to return to the Grand Essence realm. The blue-robed woman spoke a lot. Without waiting for Su Yen to speak, she interjected, "The Su clan's corner is also a part of the Grand Essence domain. It's just that it's at the edge of the Grand Essence domain, far away from the big sacred cities." This blue-robed woman obviously thought that Ning Cheng came from the Grand Essence domain, and she didn't guess wrong. After Ning Cheng heard the blue-robed woman's words, he felt a little relieved and quickly said, "Then I'll have to trouble you. I want to go to the Grand Essence Sea, but I don't know if it's convenient to go through the Su clan's corner." When Su Yen heard that Ning Cheng wanted to go to the Grand Essence Sea, he hesitated for a moment before saying, "I'm afraid it'll be difficult." Although the Su clan's corner is in the Grand Essence domain, it's still a year away from the Grand Essence Sea. Because the Su clan's corner is too remote in the Grand Essence realm, it doesn't have a teleportation array. If Brother Ning wants to go to the Grand Essence Sea, you can go to the Broken Spear God City first and then use the Broken Spear God City's airship to get there. Chapter 10:18. Then I'll have to trouble you. Ning Cheng quickly thanked him with cupped fists. He decided to go to Su clan's corner first and then head to Broken Thatch Spirit City from there. Su Yen was a very enthusiastic person and spoke in a measured manner. He didn't even ask why Ning Cheng got injured or why he crashed into the void airship. Ning Cheng also learned that the girl in the yellow skirt who saved his life was Su Yan's fiancée. The girl in the yellow skirt was called Su Shiqian, and she represented Su clan's corner in doing business on the edge of the Grand Essence realm. The girl in the blue skirt was called Mo Yuan, and she followed Su Shiqian around. The middle-aged man who brought him back from the airship was called Zhuozhong, an early-stage Dao Birth Realm expert. He was also the person with the highest cultivation on the airship. Not far from the Grand Essence realm, there was a sizable planet called Yi-Su Star. Yi-Su Star was basically a primitive mountain range and forest. Many cultivators in the Grand Essence realm came to Yi-Su Star to look for resources. Because of this, several large star cities were formed on Yi-Su Star. Many chambers of commerce and clans on the edge of the Grand Essence realm chose to go to Yi-Su Star to do business. Su clan's corner was such a small clan. They could easily leave the Grand Essence realm and enter the void. Similarly, Yi-Su Star wasn't too far away. Su Shiqian was a kind person, and many merchants on Yi-Su Star knew her. Therefore, she always represented her clan to do business on Yi-Su Star. The airship pierced through the void and entered the Grand Essence realm. It didn't take long before it arrived at Su clan's corner. Su clan's corner was similar to what Ning Cheng had imagined. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and the environment was very good. However, the spirit chi here was very average. Moreover, it was located on the edge of the Grand Essence realm, which made it not very safe. Many void demonic beasts would attack the interface from the edges. Very few would tear through the void from the center. The Grand Essence realm's laws were broken, and the boundary protection restrictions were very weak. They didn't even have the most basic blocking effect. Once a void beast attacked, Su clan's corner could only move forward and rely on its own defensive restrictions to resist. The patriarch of Su clan's corner was Su Shiqian's grandfather, Su Ji. Su Ji, like Su Shiqian, was very kind and enthusiastic. After knowing that Ning Cheng was rescued by his granddaughter, he became even more enthusiastic towards Ning Cheng. Not only did he bring out many spirit fruits, but he also invited Ning Cheng to taste the famous dishes of the Su clan's corner. The wine and dishes in the Grand Essence realm all contained a powerful spirit chi aura. Therefore, many cultivators like to go to restaurants, order a few dishes and a pot of wine, and then slowly savor it. This method of improving one's cultivation and enjoying oneself was very popular. It's just that after entering the Grand Essence ruins, Ning Cheng rarely went to restaurants to eat these things. Using this kind of method to increase one's spirit essence, the speed was really too slow. After entering the Grand Essence ruins, the second Ning Cheng had to struggle with all kinds of dangers. So, how could he be in the mood to go to a restaurant and slowly savor these things? This time, he felt the Su family's passion and gratitude for saving his life. That was why he raised his cup to toast at the banquet. If Su Shiqian had not saved him, he might not have died. However, his chances of dying would increase by a lot. Not to mention the various meteorites and whirlpools in the void. Even if he encountered a powerful void demonic beast, it would kill him in one bite. Therefore, Ning Cheng felt sincere gratitude towards Su Shiqian. Dao friend Ning is already at the late-stage Dao sculpting realm at such a young age. Your future achievements are bound to be limitless. Su Ji and spoke up while accepting Ning Cheng's toast. No wonder he sighed. He had cultivated for so many years, but he was only at the late-stage Dao birth. Ning Cheng quickly said, "Junior apprentice Sister Shiqian's cultivation isn't any weaker than mine. Her future achievements won't be any lower than mine." Su Ji shook his head, picked up his wine cup, and drank it in one gulp. He didn't explain anything. Ning Cheng didn't want to continue talking about this, so he said, "I heard that the largest sacred city in the Grand Essence domain is called the Heaven Essence Sacred City. All kinds of heavenly and earthly treasures are concentrated there, and many people come and go there. Not to mention the Heaven Essence Sacred City, there are many similar top-grade sacred cities in other parts of the Grand Essence domain. Why doesn't Su Clan's corner go to these sacred cities to do business? Instead, they want to leave the Grand Essence realm for the Yi-Su star?" This was indeed Ning Cheng's doubt, and Ning Cheng asked it intentionally. It stood to reason that Su Clan's corner's Su and hadn't heard of him. The only possibility was that Su Clan's corner had no intersection with the prosperous areas of the Grand Essence domain. Su Ji sighed. "It's not that we don't want to do business in those sacred cities, but we don't have the qualifications to do so. Not to mention that we can't afford the things in those sacred cities, even the things we bring to them won't catch their eyes." Ning Cheng vaguely understood something in his heart. At this moment, a servant walked into the hall and bowed to Su Ji. "A woman asked to see the patriarch. She said that she has something to discuss with you, and she's quite strong. Hurry up and invite her in." Su Ji quickly stood up and said. This made Ning Cheng understand Su Ji's way of doing things. He always treated people with kindness, and no matter what happened, he would always do it with the mentality of not offending anyone. Su Clan's corner strength was indeed weak, but Su Ji's attitude wasn't wrong. After a while, the servant came in with a woman with a veil over her face. The woman didn't speak, but her gaze swept through the hall. Then her gaze fell on Ning Cheng. "Hi, you're here too?" Ning Cheng stood up and cupped his fists towards the woman. "Many thanks, senior apprentice sister, for saving me." This woman was called Ruo Shi, and Ning Cheng happened to know her. Back then, the two of them teamed up to go to the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond. If not for Ruo Shi, he, Yan Ji, and Shui Yueka would have all died in the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond. However, Ruo Shi could only leave the hall because of his existence. Hearing Ning Cheng's words, Su Shiqian and the others looked at Ning Cheng in surprise. Why did Ning Cheng get saved everywhere? Ruo Shi's serious eyes flashed with a hint of a smile, and she waved her hand and said, "Your cultivation really shocked me. Apart from one person, I can't think of anyone who could advance to the Dao sculpting realm like you. Back then we helped each other, not one of us saved the other. Today, I came here to discuss something with Patriarch Su. Do you have the same purpose as me?" "No, I want to go to the Grand Essence Sea to have a look." Ning Cheng came here to see if he could reach the Grand Essence Sea as quickly as possible and then go to the Dragon Washing Pool to cultivate for another 6 months before the 5 Realms Pill competition. Ruo Shi smiled and didn't continue to talk to Ning Cheng. Instead, she said to Su Jian, "I have some private matters that I want to trouble Patriarch Su with. I wonder if Patriarch Su can have a private chat with me?" After that, she didn't wait for Su Ji to refuse and directly took out a ring and placed it in front of Su Ji. "Take the things inside as a reward." Su Ji's spiritual consciousness swept through the ring, and his expression immediately changed. He quickly handed the ring to Ruo Shi. "This Dao friend, I don't dare to accept these things." Ning Cheng knew that Ruoshi had a high cultivation, and the things she took out must have scared Su Jin. After all, this matter hadn't even started, and she had already taken out such frightening things. It would have been strange if the patriarch of a small family didn't panic. It doesn't matter. As long as Patriarch Su tells the truth, whether it can help or not, I will give you these things as a reward. Ruoshi didn't take back the ring. Su Jian's face filled with worry, and he turned his pleading eyes on Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng understood Su Jian's meaning. As the patriarch of such a small family, he wouldn't dare to accept things from others casually. The reason why Su Clan's corner could survive here most likely had something to do with Su Jian's kindness and cautiousness. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng chuckled and said, Patriarch Su, you don't have to worry. This senior apprentice sister isn't someone who talks nonsense. How about this, I'll be your guarantor. Ning Cheng and Ruoshi had teamed up to go to the 9 Revolutions Sacred Dao Pond, so he knew Ruoshi's temperament. She was a person of principle and wouldn't vent her anger on others for no reason. Hearing Ning Cheng's words, Su Jin could only put away the ring and said, Then, this Dao friend and Dao friend Ning, please come with me to the inner chamber. Ning Cheng was the guarantor and knew Ruoshi. Therefore, Su Jian's invitation didn't have any problems. Not waiting for Ning Cheng to refuse, Ruoshi nodded and said, All right, then junior apprentice brother Ning can come with us. Su Jian brought Ning Cheng and Ruoshi to the inner chamber and poured a cup of spirit tea for each of them before cupping his fists and asking, Dao friend, you can speak your mind. He could feel that Ruoshi's cultivation was far stronger than his own. Although he didn't address her as senior, he still felt a little worried. Ruoshi also saw Su Jian's worries and casually said, Patriarch Su, you don't have to worry. I just came here to ask one thing. I heard that Patriarch Su knows of a place with weak laws at the edge of the Grand Essence Realm. Is this place the only way to leave the Grand Essence Realm and enter a new positional plane? Su Jian's expression suddenly changed when he heard Ruoshi's words, and he didn't speak for a while. Ning Cheng's heart moved, but he also didn't speak. He also wanted to know about this place. It was just like the graceful star mainland's Heaven's Way. In case he wanted to leave the Grand Essence Realm one day, this place with weak laws would be perfect for him. Ruoshi didn't seem to be in a hurry and waited quietly. The room suddenly turned silent. After a while, Su Jian stood up, bowed to Ruoshi and said, Although I'm the patriarch, I can't make this decision alone. Can I ask this Dao friend to wait for a while? Ruoshi nodded, It's fine. Patriarch Su, please help yourself. Junior apprentice brother Ning Cheng and I will wait for you here for a while. After Su Jian left, Ning Cheng raised his hand and activated several restrictions before asking, Senior apprentice sister Ruoshi, don't you have an opening heaven talisman's child talisman? If you want to leave this interface, can't you just use that child talisman? Ruoshi sighed, I was soft-hearted and lent that child talisman to someone else. Now, I can't leave this place by myself. If I still can't find a way to leave this place, I might have to ask you to borrow that child talisman. Ning Cheng said with some helplessness, You saved me and Yan Ji, so I don't mind lending you a child talisman. It's just that the child talisman on me isn't mine, but a friend of mine. Even if I lend it to you, you have to tell me how to return it to me in the future. Are you really willing to lend it to me? Ruoshi's eyes flashed with surprise. She had just casually mentioned it. How precious was the opening heaven talisman's child talisman? Who would be willing to lend it to others? Ning Cheng smiled, Let's not talk about me lending you the child talisman. Tell me, you don't know many people in the Grand Essence Realm, nor do you have any friendship, right? Why would you lend the opening heaven talisman's child talisman to someone else? Chapter 10:19. Ruoshi replied with some helplessness, It's the daughter of an old friend. He helped me a lot in the past, and since his daughter ended up in the Grand Essence Realm, I couldn't help him. Besides, they even wanted to leave the wood origin bead with me, so I had no way to refuse. What? Ning Cheng almost grabbed Ruoshi's hand in excitement. Fortunately, he still managed to keep his wits about him and asked in a trembling voice, You mean the wood origin bead? In your hands? Ruoxi looked at Ningqing in doubt. The wood origin bead was indeed a top-grade treasure, but it shouldn't be this shocking. Ningqing took in a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He then cupped his fists towards Ruoxi and said, "Senior apprentice Sister Ruoxi, I urgently need the wood origin bead. If the wood origin bead was with you, I would be willing to exchange anything with you." Ruoxi showed a slight smile. "First, the wood origin bead isn't with me. To make me believe it, they took out such a precious treasure and left it with me. In fact, how could I have the nerve to let them leave something with me? Second, even if the wood origin bead was with me, I wouldn't be able to exchange it with you. It's someone else who left it with me. It's not my own thing." Ningqing sat down in disappointment. "I was a bit reckless." Then he asked again, "What's the name of the person with the wood origin bead? Where is she?" Ruoxi, seeing Ningqing's anxious look, said, "Her name is Tian Yuan. I don't know her, but you'd better not have any ideas about her. No one can afford to offend the friend beside her. Even the Tao Perfection cultivator from the Void Star sect whom you saved can't afford to offend. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Besides, I've also seen Tian Yuan's wood origin bead. It's just a broken half of the bead. The value of the other half of the bead is much weaker." When Ningqing heard Tian Yuan's name, he immediately understood what was going on. Ningqing also knew the blue-robed woman beside Tian Yuan, who had saved the two of them once. Ningqing sighed and touched his nose. He didn't expect that the other half of the bead would be with Tian Yuan. Since the wood origin bead was with Tian Yuan, it would be difficult for him to obtain it. If it was someone else, he could use a large number of God crystals. If God crystals didn't work, he could use God spirit veins. If God spirit veins didn't work, he could use Tao fruits. If Tao fruits didn't work, he could use Tao pills, Dharma treasures, cultivation techniques. There would always be something that moved the other party. However, none of this had any effect on Tian Muwan. If he really did this, it would only increase the gap between the two of them. Moreover, facing Tian Muwan, he did not know how to open his mouth and ask for it. "It looks like you already know what I did." Ningqing spoke in a somewhat dejected tone. Ruoxi smiled faintly. "You made such a name for yourself at the Pill Exchange Conference and even saved a Tao Perfection powerhouse from the Void Star sect. If I didn't know about it, then I would have wasted my time in the Grand Essence domain." After hesitating for a while, Ningqing took out a jade box and handed it to Ruoxi before saying, "This is my child talisman. I'll lend it to you for the time being. You have to tell me how to return it to me in the future." Ruoxi not only saved him but also saved Yanji. As such, Ningqing did not hesitate to lend her a child talisman. Ruoxi, on seeing Ningqing really take out the child talisman for her, felt a trace of emotion in her eyes. She had also worked with Ningqing a few times, as such she also had some understanding of Ningqing's character. The reason why she saved Ningqing was because the two of them were cooperating, and she really appreciated Ningqing's character of repaying kindness. "I'm really embarrassed about this. When I saved your friend, I even took a bottle of Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills." Ruoxi felt a little embarrassed. Ningqing chuckled. "The value of a bottle of Empyrean consciousness transmutation pills is far less than a sacred essence fruit." For Yanji's aptitude to improve to this level, Ningqing knew very well how useful the sacred essence fruit that Ruoxi had given him was. Even if Yanji's foundation was damaged again, the role of the sacred essence fruit was irreplaceable. He did not have that kind of precious foundation Tao fruit. "Okay, then I'll accept it. I live in the sacred Tao world's goddess sacred shrine. I only heard that it was a realm separated from the absolute beginning realm after it shattered. But after I go back, I might not go to the sacred Tao world. Instead, I want to go to the Grand Change realm. I heard that you will represent the 5 realms in the pill competition, and we will most likely meet in the Grand Change realm. I will return it to you then." Ruoxi put away the child talisman Ningqing lent her and spoke in a sincere tone. Ningqing nodded. He had never been to the sacred Tao world, but he had heard about the shattering of the absolute beginning realm. He knew that the laws in this place were no less broken than the Grand Essence realm. In fact, it was even more broken. At this moment, Su Ji and walked over, and Ning Cheng raised his hand to remove the restrictions once again. Ruo Shi received Ning Cheng's child talisman and felt much more at ease. Even if Su Ji and didn't want to tell her where the location was, she didn't care. Su Ji cupped his fists and said to Ruo Shi, "Although I don't know where this Dao friend got the news, I ask the two Dao friends not to spread this matter." After saying that, Su Ji handed a jade strip to Ruo Shi with both hands. Ruo Shi took the jade strip and nodded cautiously. "Patriarch Su, you can rest assured that we won't tell anyone about this." Su Ji said gratefully, "Many thanks, two Dao friends." He also sighed in his heart. He had already taken out the jade strip, but the other party didn't say anything. It was just a form of psychological comfort. Since the other party knew that the Su clan knew about this location, then someone else would know about it in the future. The Su clan's corner was too weak, and they couldn't afford to offend anyone. Ruo Shi saw Su Ji's worries and smiled. "Although I know about it, it doesn't mean that others know about it. Patriarch Su doesn't have to worry." After saying that, she looked at Ning Cheng. "Junior apprentice brother Ning Cheng, if you have nothing to do, you can come with me. If you have something to do." Ning Cheng had long wanted to leave, so he quickly said, "I'm fine. I'll leave with senior apprentice sister Ruo Shi later." After saying that, Ning Cheng took out 2 jade bottles and handed them to Su Ji. "Patriarch Su, here are 2 medicinal pills to repay junior apprentice sister Shiqian for saving us." "I can't accept it." Su Ji quickly declined. Ning Cheng knew about Su Ji's cautious character and smiled. "It's just 2 worthless medicinal pills. It's just a token of my appreciation." Seeing Ning Cheng speak in such a manner, Su Ji could only accept Ning Cheng's medicinal pills and take the initiative to send Ning Cheng and Ruo Shi out of Su clan's corner. "Grandpa, I feel that senior apprentice sister's cultivation level is very high." Su Shiqian, who stood next to Su Ji, whispered after seeing Ning Cheng and Ruo Shi walk away. Su Jin sighed. "It's more than high. If I'm not wrong, that woman is probably at the 2nd step of Dao confirming." "So strong?" Su Shiqian's mouth opened wide with a look of shock. "That Ning Cheng is quite grateful. He even gave me 2 medicinal pills before leaving." After saying that, Su Ji put 2 jade bottles in Su Shiqian's hands. "You can keep them." He didn't even look at the medicinal pills. Ning Cheng only had a Dao sculpting cultivation, so the medicinal pills he gave were naturally only for his granddaughter. Su Shiqian responded casually, took out the jade bottle, and immediately exclaimed in shock, "Miraculous Crossing Dao Pill, how is this possible?" The Miraculous Crossing Dao Pill was refined from the Dao fruit Miraculous Crossing Sunset Fruit. It was a Dao pill that enhanced Dao sculpting Holy Emperor's comprehension of the Dao raising Dao. The value of one was immeasurable. The reason why Ning Cheng gave this medicinal pill was for Su Shiqian. Su Ji could no longer maintain a calm attitude. He grabbed the jade bottle in Su Shiqian's hand and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. Sure enough, it was a Miraculous Crossing Dao pill. He closed the jade bottle as quickly as possible and spoke with a trembling voice, "Hurry up and take a look at the other one." Without waiting for her grandpa to speak, Su Shiqian opened the other jade bottle and spoke with a trembling voice, "Purple Heaven Pill." This time, she didn't need her grandpa to teach her and took the initiative to close the jade bottle. The Purple Heaven Pill was a Dao pill that could help one comprehend the Dao transformation realm. It was even more precious than the Miraculous Crossing Dao pill. More importantly, only a Dao transformation pill sage could refine such a medicinal pill. Moreover, there were only a few Dao transformation pill sages in the entire Grand Essence realm. Ning Cheng had given out 2 such Dao pills at once. It was truly a huge gesture. Su Ji took a deep breath. "Shiqian, the person you saved is definitely a very remarkable person. Maybe because my Su clan's corner doesn't have any dealings with the Grand Essence domain, we don't know about this person. Grandpa, should I inquire about him?" Su Shiqian's tone also sounded a little excited. She ran business for the Su clan all year round. How could she not know the value of these 2 Dao pills? Su Ji shook his head. "No, don't inquire about this kind of person. From now on, I'm going into seclusion to attack the Tao transformation realm. With this purple heaven pill, I have a good chance of advancing to the Tao transformation realm. You also have to work hard in seclusion and try to use this miraculous Tao crossing pill to reach the Tao raising realm. Yes, Grandpa. Su Shiqian's tone revealed how much she wanted to advance to the Tao nurturing realm. Her qualifications had always been top-notch. Unfortunately, her Su clan's corner couldn't compare to the big clans in the Grand Essence domain. Wanting a Tao pill was harder than ascending to the heavens, not to mention the precious Tao pill Ningqing gave her. Ningcheng and Ruoshi had already arrived at a canyon filled with miasma. The divine grasses here were scarce, and with the miasma spreading everywhere, it made it impossible to cultivate. This was the place shown on the map given by Suji. It should be here. Ruoshi stopped and handed the jade strip in her hand to Ningcheng. Senior apprentice Sister Ruoshi, are you leaving now? Is everything over here? Ningcheng asked. Ruoshi nodded. Yes, I've been out for a long time and have to go back. I'll try not to use this child talisman of yours. If I really can't go back, I'll use the child talisman. If there's a chance, we'll meet in the Grand Change realm. After saying that, Ruoshi took a step forward. But just as she was about to fall into the canyon, she suddenly remembered something and turned back to Ningcheng. Ningcheng, a lot of powerhouses have come to Broken Thatch Spirit City recently. You've offended too many people, so you'd better change your appearance when you go to Broken Thatch Spirit City. I know. Ningcheng nodded. Even if Ruoshi hadn't mentioned it, he would have changed his appearance if he wanted to go to Broken Thatch Spirit City. Ruoshi took out a talisman and activated it, causing the laws of space to immediately turn chaotic. After a few breaths, she brought out the 9-petal lotus throne and blasted it into the chaotic space. Thin spatial ripples appeared in the canyon. Ruoshi raised her hand and tore it, and her figure disappeared without a trace. Chapter 10:20. The most powerful person in Su clan's corner was naturally Su Ji, but the most capable person was Su Ji An's granddaughter, Su Shiqian. In recent years, the businesses of Su clan's corner were all controlled by Su Shiqian. Under Su Shiqian's careful management, the Su clan's corner had accumulated some cultivation resources. Otherwise, the strength of Su clan's corner would be much worse than it was now. This time, after Su Shiqian returned, she decided to go into seclusion. Therefore, the business of the Su clan's corner was handed over to Su Shiqian's brother, Su Hui. After the family meeting, Yan Jinqing's face darkened as he asked Su Hui, "Brother Hui, do you know why grandfather asked little sister to go into seclusion and hand over the business to you?" Yan Jinqing was Su Hui's wife. Her aptitude was slightly inferior, but because she stayed in the Su clan's corner to cultivate in seclusion, she didn't need to run around like Su Shiqian. Therefore, her cultivation was not inferior to Su Shiqian's, and she had also succeeded in sculpting her Tao. Su Gui looked valiant, but his long face and thin eyebrows ruined his valiant appearance, making him look gloomy. Su Hui frowned slightly when he heard what his wife, Yan Jinqing, said in a rough voice. "All these years, Shiqian has been running around outside while we've been cultivating at home. Now that Shiqian is going into seclusion, I, as her elder brother, naturally have to take over the business of Su clan's corner. Could it be that I can still hand over the business of Su clan's corner to outsiders?" Yan Jinqing sneered. "The business of the Su clan's corner is suppressing us, and I don't have much opinion about it. It's just that Grandpa is very unfair this time." "How is it unfair?" Su Gui asked, staring at Yan Jinqing. Yan Jinqing took a deep breath. "Do you know what Ningcheng, who was brought back by Shiqian, gave to Grandpa?" "What is it?" Su Hui asked subconsciously, completely distracted by Yan Jinqing's words. Yan Jinqing's spiritual sense carefully swept out and then whispered, "It's 2 Tao pills. One is the purple heaven pill, the other is the miraculous crossing Tao pill." "What?" Su Gui looked at Yan Jinqing in disbelief and repeated, "You mean the violet heaven pill and the miraculous crossing Tao pill?" Yan Jinqing rolled her eyes at Su Gui. "Keep your voice down. Yes, these are the 2 Tao cores. When Grandpa and little sister sent off that Ningcheng, I happened to hear it. Su Gue had already calmed down. He stared at Yan Jinqing. Grandpa is a Dao birth final stage holy emperor. Even if I don't mention Grandpa, little sister has been running around outside all these years. She shouldn't be so ignorant. How could she let you hear these words? Plus, Ning Cheng is just a Dao molding divine emperor. Why would he take out the purple heaven pill? What are you trying to do? Yan Jinqing bit her lip. After a while, she spoke up. How could Ning City have such a pill? I don't know about it. I left a monitoring array disk outside. I wanted to make my Su clan's corner safer, but I didn't expect to accidentally overhear it. Su Hui said coldly, Jinqing, you didn't leave behind a surveillance array disk, did you? Immediately put away all these monitoring array disks. Yan Jinqing said aggrievedly, yes, Brother Hui. I'm just feeling unfair for you. You are the next patriarch of the Su clan's corner. He also had the miraculous crossing Dao pill, but he actually gave it to Shiqian and forgot about you. As she said this, Yan Jinqing had completely forgotten where her cultivation resources and time had come from all these years. Su Hui's expression was somewhat ugly, but he did not answer Yan Jinqing's question. After Ning Cheng sent off Ruo Shi, he disguised himself as a middle-aged male cultivator with a face full of vicissitudes and arrived at Broken Thatch Spirit City. Rogue cultivators with a face full of vicissitudes and a void aura were everywhere in Broken Thatch Spirit City at the edge of the Grand Essence realm. Therefore, Ning Cheng didn't stand out at all. Arriving outside Broken Thatch Spirit City, Ning Cheng finally understood why this city was called Broken Thatch Spirit City. The broken spear was stabbed diagonally outside Broken Thatch God City. It looked very strange. The exposed part of the spear was more than 100 feet long, and its entire body was mottled. Although it had been a long time, when Ning Cheng saw this half-broken spear, he could still feel a faint hostility emanating from it. Ning Cheng quickly retracted his spiritual consciousness. This kind of hostility definitely had no benefits for cultivation. Once the hostility invaded his sea of consciousness, he wouldn't be far from cultivation deviation. People came and went outside Broken Thatch Spirit City, but few people would use their spiritual consciousness to scan the Broken Thatch Spirit City outside the city like Ning Cheng. Just as Ruo Shi said, Ning Cheng saw a lot of powerhouses here. Not to mention many Dao birth and Dao transformation holy emperors, Ning Cheng even saw 1 or 2 Dao confirming second step Dao essence holy emperors. Ning Cheng didn't stay in a rest stop, nor did he take the airship to the Grand Essence Sea. Instead, he went straight to a merchant house. Since he had the Starry Sky Wheel, his speed definitely wouldn't be any slower than those airships. Since Broken Thatch Spirit City didn't have a long-distance teleportation array, he might as well go to the merchant house to buy a route map and head to the Grand Essence Sea alone. You said you want to go to the Grand Essence Domain or the Grand Essence Sea. Do you want to go to the Grand Essence Domain alone? The shop assistant looked at Ning Cheng in disbelief. Although Broken Thatch Spirit City also belonged to the Grand Essence Domain, few people regarded it as the Grand Essence Domain. When it came to the Grand Essence Domain, it usually referred to the depths of the Grand Essence Domain, not the edge of the Grand Essence realm. Ning Cheng asked in confusion. Yeah, what's wrong? The shop assistant was relatively honest and explained, this friend, I don't have a detailed route to the Grand Essence Domain, but I do have a simple map. I suggest that you take a void ship instead of going there alone. But Ning Cheng was even more puzzled. If he did not take the airship, then he would at most be a bit slower. The shop assistant sighed and said, if it was really that simple, then Duanmao God City's void-flying ships wouldn't be able to find any business. From Broken Thatch Spirit City to the Grand Essence Domain, one had to pass through the Grand Essence Demon Vein and the Grand Essence Sea. The Grand Essence Demon Vein stretched for hundreds of millions of miles. Moreover, it contained countless powerful spirit beasts. If an ordinary person tried to cross the Grand Essence Demon Vein, it would be akin to courting death. It would take them a few months to cross the Grand Essence Demon Vein and the Grand Essence Sea. The place where the Grand Essence Sea and the Grand Essence Demon Vein meet is also desolate and uninhabited. If you want to pass through this Grand Essence Sea, it's also filled with many dangers. For most people, Passing through this place is no different from courting death. Ning Cheng sucked in a mouthful of cold air. He had thought that it would only be a long journey. He had never thought that there would be such a dangerous journey in between. How did Ruoshi come over in the first place? Why didn't she mention the dangers? Ning Cheng quickly understood that Ruoshi must have thought that he knew about it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said that he had to change his appearance to enter Duanmao God City. Moreover, she didn't feel much surprise when he said that the purpose of going to Duanmao God City was to return to the Grand Essence domain. Seeing Ning Cheng not speaking, the shop assistant tried to persuade him again. Those void airships have fixed routes. Moreover, they have negotiated with the powerhouses of the Grand Essence Demon Vein. Even so, many void airships have died to the Demon Vein spirit beasts for various reasons. Therefore, the price of going to the Grand Essence Sea or the Grand Essence Domain is very high. Ordinary people simply can't afford it. Ning Cheng finally understood why no one in Su Clan's corner knew about him despite his great reputation. Many thanks. Since you don't have a detailed route map, can you give me a directional map? Ning Cheng said with a smile. Since there were too many people buying the directional map, the shop assistant didn't say anything and took out a jade strip and handed it to Ning Cheng. After getting the directional jade strip, Ning Cheng was just about to walk out of the merchant house when he suddenly remembered something. He looked back and asked again, "Excuse me, why did Duanmao God City have so many powerhouses recently?" Ning Cheng didn't know if Duanmao God City was like this or not. But he asked this question because of what Ruoshi said. The shop assistant smiled and took out another jade strip. In half a month, Duanmao God City will hold an auction. This jade strip contains some auction items. If this friend wants to go to the auction, you can buy one. Ning Cheng hadn't participated in the Grand Essence Realms auctions, but he had participated in the Grand Essence Realms trade fairs a few times. Ning Cheng didn't care about these auctions because there were just too many of them. He asked casually, "Duanmao God City probably holds auctions often. Do so many people come every time?" The shop assistant shook his head. Of course not. The reason why so many powerhouses are attracted this time is mainly because of the 5-element chaos chi that will appear in this auction. I want to buy a jade strip from the auction. By the way, what is the 5-element chaos chi? Ning Cheng immediately bought a jade strip when he heard about the 5-element chaos chi. He had never heard of the 5-element chaos chi, but his mysterious yellow bead was closely related to the 5-element origins. As long as it was related to the 5 elements, he would always inquire about it. The shop assistant, seeing Ning Cheng's kind attitude, started to talk even more. The 5-element chaos chi is a precious treasure comparable to the origins. It's very difficult to gather the 5 elements. If you can gather the 5-element chaos chi, I heard that it can upgrade a cultivator's miniature world to a true spirit world with very high laws. It can even become a 5-element world second only to a primal chaos world. Seeing Ning Cheng listening carefully, the shop assistant continued to talk. The 5-element chaos chi can not only improve a world, but it also has a strong effect on alchemy and artifact crafting. Even if you don't use it, you can use it for your own cultivation. It's the best cultivation resource. It's much better than those Dao fruits. Ning Cheng's heart grew hotter the more he listened. His mysterious yellow bead lacked a part of the wood origin. Using wood origin crystals to fill it was just a drop in the bucket. If there was a wood-attributed chaos chi, could it replace that half of the wood origin bead? The 5 realms pill competition was just around the corner. According to Ning Cheng's original idea, he wanted to send Yanji to Jiangzhou Star. But he didn't expect that he couldn't repair the teleportation array. According to Ruoshi, the 5 realms pill competition would be held in the Grand Change Realm. What if the Grand Change Realm's heaven and earth laws were too strong and someone found out that he brought Yanji to the Grand Change Realm? May I ask what the 5-element chaos chi is being auctioned this time? Ning Cheng asked eagerly. The shop assistant also saw Ning Cheng's interest and said with a smile, "It's the earth-attributed 5-element chaos chi." Although he was sure that Ning Cheng wouldn't be able to afford it even if he went, he felt that he had succeeded in making his customers so eager. Chapter 1021. Ning Qing felt a little disappointed in his heart. If it wasn't wood-attributed chaos chi, it wouldn't be of much use to him. If the chaos chi is so precious, why auction it in Broken Thatch Spirit City? Wouldn't it be more valuable if we went to Grand Essence Domain's Heaven Essence Sacred City? Ning Qing asked. In fact, this wasn't what he was thinking about. He wanted to ask who sold the chaos chi and where they got it. The shop assistant smiled. I heard that the person who obtained the Earth-attributed chaos chi leaked the news. He also knew that he couldn't take it away, so he decided to sell it in Broken Thatch Spirit City. This is the edge of the Grand Essence realm, and no powerful holy emperors would come here. Therefore, many people want to try their luck. Ning Qing nodded. This shop assistant was right. This was the edge of the Grand Essence realm. The 10 major sects and some Dao fusion powerhouses were too far away from here. Not to mention whether they could get the news. Even if they did, they might not be able to come in time. Without so many powerhouses, ordinary holy emperors would have a lot more opportunities. Then who was so careless? Who leaked the news? Let everyone know where it came from. Ning Qing asked. This was what he wanted to know the most. The shop assistant shook his head. Although I know that the person leaked the news, it's not something I can know. I suggest you don't ask about it. Just ask where it came from. It's not good to let others hear about it. The person who obtained the chaos chi definitely isn't simple. Ning Qing smiled, cupped his fists, and thanked the shop assistant before leaving the merchant house. The jade strip he bought from the shop assistant was quite detailed. Not only did the jade strip contain most of the treasures to be sold, but it also contained the name and location of the auction house. The auction was held by a very famous chamber of commerce on the border, Libao Chamber of Commerce. The auction was held on the first floor of Libao Chamber of Commerce, Libao Divine Hall. There were many things on the jade strip, but only the chaos chi of the 5 elements caught Ning Qing's eye. Ning Qing didn't plan to participate in the auction. It made no difference to him whether he participated or not. What he wanted to know was, where did he get the Earth-attributed chaos chi? Libao Divine Hall's aura couldn't compare to Heaven Essence Sacred City's Pill Union. Moreover, even if Ning Qing arranged the defensive array formation outside, it wouldn't be any worse. I have something to put up for auction and want to find the person in charge of the Chamber of Commerce. Ning Qing entered the Libao merchant house and immediately pointed out the purpose of his visit. Sure, but you'll have to wait for the next auction in 3 months. This auction is fully booked. The one who received Ning Qing was a female cultivator from the Le Treasure Pavilion. Although she spoke politely, she did not hesitate to reject Ning Qing. Who was he trying to deceive? Ning Qing took out a jade box and placed it on the table. I want to auction a Dao transformation Dao fruit. If I really can't put it up for auction in half a month, I will look for the next one. Hearing the 2 words Dao fruit, a yellow-bearded old man sitting in the corner of the room suddenly raised his head, and his gaze shot towards Ning Qing. Ning Qing remained calm. He had already seen that the yellow-bearded old man was the one in charge of this house. Moreover, the female cultivator who spoke to him was only at the late-stage eternal realm. This yellow-bearded old man was at the late-stage Dao transformation realm. Dark Knight, go out. Leave this to me. The old man stood up. Yes. The female cultivator who refused Ning Qing quickly bowed in response and carefully retreated. After the female cultivator retreated, the yellow-bearded old man walked up to Ning Qing, put his hand on the jade box Ning Qing took out, and asked, "May I have a look?" This yellow-bearded old man felt a little strange. Ning Qing only had a Dao sculpting cultivation and seemed to be a rogue cultivator in the starry sky. Logically speaking, such a cultivator should be afraid of him if he put a Dao transformation Dao fruit up for auction. However, he couldn't see even the slightest fear from Ning Qing. One could even say that Ning Qing only felt calm. Ning Qing showed a slight smile. Please? He naturally wouldn't fear a Dao transformation holy emperor. If they really fought, he had full confidence that he could kill this yellow-bearded old man in front of him. He didn't have anything to fear. The yellow-bearded old man opened the jade box and then closed it again. Although his expression remained calm, he felt shocked in his heart. Ning Qing looked like a late-stage Dao sculpting holy emperor, yet he could take out a grand nullification divine fruit. It was a Tao fruit derived from a Tao transformation Holy Emperor's laurelated spirit technique. Although it wasn't a top-grade Tao transformation Tao fruit, it was at least a mid-grade Tao transformation Tao fruit. What he lacked the most right now was this grand nullification divine fruit. I'm Lu Bao Divine Hall's auction manager, Ni Jing. May I ask if this Tao friend wants to auction this Tao fruit? Ni Jing put down the jade box again and asked with cupped fists. He didn't ask about Ning Cheng's origin. Some guests were afraid of this, but as the auction manager, he naturally knew about it. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile. I don't have to auction this Tao fruit. If the price is right, I can sell this Tao fruit to Lu Bao Divine Hall now and let you auction it. However, I have an additional condition for selling this Tao fruit. Ni Jing nodded. If there was no condition, then he would have some doubts about selling a grand nullification divine fruit to Lu Bao Divine Hall for no reason. Everyone knew that selling it like this was completely different from selling it at an auction. Ni Jing didn't speak. He just waited for Ning Cheng to state his conditions. Ning Cheng knocked on the grand nullification divine fruit as if to remind Ni Jing that he was knocking on a Tao transformation Tao fruit. After knocking for a while, Ning Cheng spoke up casually. I heard that Lu Bao Divine Hall has 5-element chaos chi for sale this time? Ni Jing replied with a calm expression. According to the guest who came to auction it, it's 5-element chaos chi. I've never seen this thing before, but judging from the natural restriction and the aura within it, the guest who put it up for auction didn't speak nonsense. If nothing unexpected happens, it is indeed 5-element chaos chi. You didn't check it? Ning Cheng asked in surprise. Ni Jing smiled. This guest must be joking. This thing isn't easy to open for inspection. Ning Cheng didn't ask again. He guessed that it was a natural restriction. After Lu Bao Divine Hall opened it, it couldn't restore it. I would like to ask, where did this guest obtain the earth attribute chaos chi from? This is my additional condition. Ning Cheng spoke directly. Facing an old fellow like Ni Jing, no matter how he tried to be tactful, the other party could guess his thoughts. Therefore he might as well ask. Ni Jing showed a faint smile on his face. Apparently, he had already expected Ning Cheng's question. This Tao friend, because many people have asked about this matter, the guest who obtained the earth-attributed chaos chi also made a jade strip of the location he obtained and participated in the auction. Ning Cheng felt that there were many people who thought the same as him. Steward and I, can you sell the location jade strip to me, and I'll give you this Tao fruit as a reward? I believe that even at the auction, no one would bid higher than this. Ning Cheng knew that the location was about to be auctioned, so he didn't plan to take the great nullification divine fruit. Ni Jing shook his head. I believe this Tao friend. If you put it up for auction, a location jade strip is indeed not worth a Tao transformation Tao fruit. What I want to tell this Tao friend is that there are a total of 10 jade strips for this location auction. Ning Cheng's expression turned a little ugly. Steward and I, do you mean that even if I buy the location jade strip now, someone else will know the location like me after the auction ends? Ni Jing spoke with some embarrassment. The latter part of your statement is correct, but the former part of your statement is wrong. You can't buy this location jade strip now because we promised the person who sent it. The 10 location jade strips must be sold at the auction. Even if someone offers a higher price, we will not allow them to be sold in advance. Ning Cheng's heart thumped. He had experienced too many things. What was the purpose of sending things for auction? More than 90% of people would send things for auction with the sole purpose of getting more spirit crystals. In layman's terms, it was to get a little more money. Now, no matter how high the price the other party offered, they wouldn't sell it in advance. There was only one reason. The person who sent the jade strips had the same purpose as him. Ning Cheng's purpose was to know where the earth-attributed chaos chi appeared, while the other party's purpose was to let more people know about the location of this place. If the 10 location jade strips with earth-attributed chaos chi were auctioned, it would most likely turn into tens of thousands of pieces overnight. It might even become known to the entire broken thatch spirit city. This must be intentional, but what did the person who sent the jade strips want? Ni Jing didn't say anything. Since Ning Cheng understood it, he naturally understood it as well. However, The purpose of the auction was not to care about this. As long as the auction could earn spirit crystals, it had nothing to do with the auction. Ning Cheng silently put away the grand nullification fruit. Since it was a conspiracy, did he need to waste a grand nullification fruit? Although he knew that Ni Jing only told him this because he wanted him to take out the grand nullification fruit. Otherwise, Ni Jing wouldn't have said these words. Seeing Ning Cheng put away the grand nullification fruit, Ni Jing's eyes finally showed some changes. This Dao friend, if you don't need this grand nullification fruit for the time being, I suggest you take it out for auction. You will get more cultivation resources suitable for your realm, and maybe you can succeed in the Dao birth realm in a shorter time. Ning Cheng put the jade box back on the table and spoke with a slow voice. Dao friend Ni, if you can show me the location jade strip, I will give you this Dao fruit. Ni Jing didn't expect Ning Cheng to be so bold. After knowing that there might be a conspiracy, he still dared to buy the jade strip. He naturally understood why Ning Cheng addressed him as a Dao friend instead of a steward. It was to remind him that he was also a cultivator. This reminder wasn't wrong. Apart from working in the Lubao Chamber of Commerce, he was also a cultivator and had to consider his own cultivation resources. At this moment, Ni Jing fell silent. Ning Cheng saw that Ni Jing didn't speak and knew that he was hesitating. So, he simply said, could it be that Dao friend Ni's previous words were a lie? That there was no such thing as making 10 jade strips? Ni Jing angrily grabbed a jade strip and raised it before saying, how could I lie to you? Isn't this a jade strip? I can't show you this jade strip. My Chamber of Commerce pays particular attention to credibility. Since I've promised the guest, I won't go back on my word. I won't sell it to you in advance. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness Thorn instantly broke through the restriction on the jade strip in Ni Jing's hand and read the contents of the jade strip in just a few breaths. Then he said in a cold voice, since it doesn't work, then forget it. Goodbye. Not knowing if Ning Cheng was too angry or for other reasons, he didn't take the jade box containing the grand nullification fruit with him when he left. Ni Jing walked over to the place where Ning Cheng stood and rolled up his robe sleeves. The jade box disappeared without a trace. There were some things that needed to be tacitly understood. Everyone understood this. However, he secretly felt shocked at Ning Cheng's powerful spiritual consciousness. In just a few breaths, Ning Cheng obtained the contents. Previously, he thought that Ning Cheng would need at least a dozen breaths to do it. But Ning Cheng didn't even need 2 breaths. Chapter 1022. 5 Elements Planet. This was the name of the planet that Ning Cheng saw written on the jade strip. 5 Elements Planet was an ownerless planet outside the Grand Essence realm. No one knew what was going on with this planet, but it had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This planet that suddenly appeared was discovered by a lucky cultivator. As a result, he found the Earth-attributed primal chaos chi on this planet. Even the name Planet 5 Moons was given by the cultivator who obtained the chaotic energy. According to the information Ning Cheng read from the jade strip, the 5 elements star had been floating in the void for too long, causing the concealment star protecting Grand Array outside to shatter, which led to its discovery. The directions were clearly engraved on the jade strip. Even the location of the Grand Essence realm and how to get there were clearly marked. To be honest, the reason why Ning Cheng wanted to use a Dao transformation Dao fruit to exchange for the information on this jade strip was that he wanted to take a look at it in advance. There was still half a month before the auction. If he went there half a month earlier, he might be able to obtain the 5 elemental chaos chi first. If he could really obtain the 5 elemental chaos chi, not to mention 1 great nullification divine fruit, even if he had to take out all of his great nullification divine fruits, it would still be a huge profit. But after seeing the contents of the jade strip, Ning Cheng hesitated. Previously, he had guessed that this was a conspiracy. As for why the cultivator who obtained the 5 elemental chaos chi would do this, it was most likely to be to fish in troubled waters. In Ning Cheng's opinion, it should be because of the difficulty in obtaining the 5 element primal chi. Therefore, he wanted a lot of people to take the lead. After the others got rid of the threats around the chaos chi of the 5 elements, It was easier for him to succeed because he had a more detailed direction and target. As for what kind of threats he would have to face if he wanted to obtain the 5 elements of primal chaos chi, it might be an array formation or even a demonic beast. However, Ning Qing didn't care about it. But now Ning Qing realized that he had made a mistake. Since the 5-element primal chaos chi was accidentally discovered on an ownerless planet, it meant that no one else could have seen it. The only exception would be if there were a few people in the group. If there were a few people in the group, then as long as one of them did not die, they would not wait for the cultivator who obtained the chaos energy to come and sell the map. They weren't idiots. Why wouldn't they earn this kind of money? If this cultivator was the only one left in the team, then it would be even more impossible for him to reveal the location. Such a secret had been leaked out, and everyone knew about it. The only explanation was that it was intentional. Since it was a trap set up by others, should he still go over? Ning Qing hesitated in his heart. He suspected that Enai Jing also knew about this matter. Perhaps the Lubao merchant group had participated in this plot as well. Ning Qing rubbed his somewhat messy hair. He knew that he had suffered a loss this time. It was very likely that the old fox Enai Jing had schemed against him. Enai Jing knew that even if he saw the contents of the jade slip, he would not dare to go over. Should I go or not? Whether he went or not, Ning Qing had already secretly left the broken thatch spirit city. He once again changed his appearance to that of a family disciple before returning to the broken thatch spirit city. Since the Lubao Chamber of Commerce might get involved in this, Ning Qing would not let himself be under the surveillance of the Lubao Chamber of Commerce. The second time, Ning Qing had just walked to the entrance of Broken Thatch Spirit City when he met 2 acquaintances, a man and a woman. Ning Qing remembered that the man was called Su Hui and should be Su Shiqian's elder brother. In the Su clan's corner, Su Ji had once held a family banquet, and at that time, Su Hui was also present. Ning Qing had also seen a woman standing next to Su Hui. She should be Su Hui's wife, Yan Jinqing. The Su clan's corner wasn't far from the Broken Thatch Spirit City, so Ning Qing didn't care about Su Hui and Yan Jinqing appearing in this place. Whether he had changed his appearance or not, Ning Qing had no intention of greeting this Su Hui. Ning Qing deliberately bypassed the Su Hui duo and walked into a small rest stop. After sitting down in the rest stop's lobby, he ordered a cup of spirit tea. He was still considering whether to go to 5 Elements Planet. The reason why he chose this rest stop was because he wanted to hear what other cultivators thought about the upcoming auction. At this time, the entire Broken Thatch Spirit City was probably talking about the 5-element chaos chi and the upcoming auction. This kind of news could be heard in any rest stop. Ning Qing had only drunk half of his cup of spirit tea when he saw Su Hui and Yan Jinqing walk into the rest stop. But this time, it wasn't just the 2 of them. A middle-aged man followed behind them. The middle-aged man's cultivation was higher than Su Hui's early-stage Dao birth. Seeing the expressions of the few people, Ning Qing's heart moved, and his spiritual consciousness fell on Su Hui. After a while, the Su Hui trio entered a private room and activated a restriction to isolate Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness. This time, Ning Qing didn't hesitate. Using his spiritual consciousness thorn, he directly broke the restriction of the private room and took a glance inside the room. Not to mention that this small rest stop's restrictions were rubbish. Even if the array formation restrictions here were a few grades higher, they wouldn't be able to block Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness thorn. This wasn't just because Ning Qing had obtained the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer, which greatly enhanced his spiritual consciousness attack. More importantly, Ning Qing's attainments in the Tao of array formations were too high. He could clearly tell from where his spiritual consciousness should sweep in. Big brother, what's going on? Why didn't you go to the Su clan's corner? Why did you let us come to Broken Thatch Spirit City? The first to speak was Yan Jinqing, and she sounded a little unhappy. Only then did Ning Qing realize that the middle-aged Dao birth holy emperor who followed Su Hui in was Yan Jinqing's elder brother. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, Su Hui, the Su clan will be yours sooner or later. You don't have to do it now. If Su Ji doesn't let you control the Su clan in the future, we will naturally help. Su Hui frowned but didn't speak. He just swept his gaze towards Yan Jinqing. Why did he want to control the Su clan? He felt that this was a good time. Controlling the Su clan was not a good thing. Yan Jinqing quickly said, "Big brother, I asked you to bring people to help restrain Su Hui's grandfather, and that's Wuzhong. It's not to control the Su clan, but for something else." The middle-aged man waved his hand. "No matter what it is, it's not as important as this. The Su clan's corner won't run away. I will help you in the future. Now, I called you to Broken Thatch Spirit City. If we succeed, we are likely to reach the second step of Dao confirming. It's not impossible to surpass the second step in the future." What? Hearing this, Su Hui and Yan Jinqing immediately forgot their purpose of coming here and looked at the middle-aged man eagerly. Not to mention surpassing the second step of Dao confirming, even if it was the second step of Dao confirming, how many people could reach it? Su Hui asked even more eagerly, "Big brother Pengjin, what is it that will allow us to reach the second step of Dao confirming?" The middle-aged man put up another restriction. Unfortunately, no matter how many restrictions he put up, it was useless under Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness. After putting up the restriction, the middle-aged man named Pengjin whispered, "Do you know about the upcoming auction in Broken Thatch Spirit City?" Su Hui nodded, "I know. I heard that Earth-attributed primal chaos chi has appeared. But what does it have to do with us? With our ability, it's impossible for us to obtain this primal chaos chi." Pengjin snorted, "To compete for the primal chaos chi at the auction, even if my Yen clan and your Su clan combined, we still wouldn't qualify. I'm talking about the place where the primal chaos chi appears. I know about it. If we can't bid for it, we can look for other primal chaos chi." Ugh. Pengjin's news once again excited Su Hui and Yan Jinqing, and their faces turned red with excitement. Even Ning Cheng couldn't help but focus. Did this middle-aged man also know about Planet 5 Elements? According to the news I got, the 5-element primal chaos chi is on a Planet 5 Elements not far from the Grand Essence Realm. This news will be auctioned off in half a month, so we can go to Planet 5 Elements ahead of time. I called you over for 2 reasons. Firstly, you're my family, and secondly, we can work together." Pengjin whispered. When Ning Cheng heard this, he almost crushed the cup in his hand. That old bastard in I Jing, he really didn't wrongly accuse him. This fellow had secretly leaked the news about Planet 5 Elements and even said that he couldn't sell the jade strip in advance. This old cunning fellow sold him out, yet he still helped him count the money. He had used a Dao transformation Dao fruit in exchange for a useless piece of information and not even a jade slip. Ning Cheng guessed that in this old fellow's eyes, Ning Cheng was just a clown. Ning Cheng's anger quickly dissipated, and he sighed in his heart. Compared to these best actors, he was still a bit worse. But since he wanted to auction the jade strip, why did he leak the news in advance? Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry up. Yan Jinqing stood up in excitement. Her elder brother, Pengjin, spoke up in a deep voice. "Our strength is still too weak. We need to find more people to help us. Since that person took out the location for auction, it means that the place is a bit dangerous. He can't get it alone." After that, Pengjin seemed to remember something from before. He looked at Yan Jinqing and asked, "You just said that you want me to bring a few people to Su clan's corner. Isn't it for Su Hui?" "What?" Yan Jinqing whispered. A mysterious guest came to Su clan's corner. He casually gave a purple heaven pill and a crossing chi Dao pill to Su Hui's grandfather, Su Ji. "I'm afraid that Su Shiqin would waste these 2 pills, so I want to take them back for Brother Hui." "What?" This time, it was Yan Jinqing's elder brother's turn to be shocked. He immediately asked eagerly, "Where is the mysterious guest who gave the pills?" "Don't have any ideas about that mysterious guest. Although he's just an ordinary Dao molding divine emperor, he has a very powerful friend. I suspect that he's at the second step of Dao confirming. I just want to get the 2 pills he sent to Su clan's corner and give them to Brother Hui." Yan Jinqing quickly said. Pengjin said with hatred, "You're really stupid. With Su Hui's sister's cultivation, it would take at least many years to use up this pill. We don't need to be in a hurry at all. The one in a hurry is that mysterious guest. His friend is powerful. Is he going to stay by his friend's side for the rest of his life? As long as he separates from his friend, wouldn't we be able to kill him easily? Su Hui and Yan Jinqing glanced at each other. Only now did they understand such a simple truth. They never thought of it. Chapter 1023. Ningqing sneered. Even if he and Ruoshi separated, he could still kill these three fellows with just a flip of his hand. Ningqing despised Su Shiqian's elder brother, Su Hui. This kind of person was really shameless. He had talked with Su Shiqian and Su Yan before. Therefore, he knew that the business of the Su clan's corner had always been managed by Su Shiqian, while Su Hui and Yan Jinqing were in closed-door cultivation. Not only were Su Hui and Yan Jinqing not grateful for Su Shiqian's efforts, they even coveted the pills in his possession. Putting that aside, Su Hui was still Su Shiqian's brother. How could he be so shameless? Seeing that Su Hui and Yan Jinqing understood, Peng Jin did not continue to speak. Instead, he waved his hand and said, "Let's put this matter aside for now. Since that person is related to Su Hui's sister, we can still find him through her." "Yes, we have to hurry to Planet 5 Elements now," Yan Jinqing quickly said. "There's no hurry. I still have to invite 2 friends, and then we'll go to Planet 5 Elements," Peng Jin said in a deep voice. Ningqing did not continue listening and decided to go to the 5-element planet first. Since he and Yan Jinqing's brother knew about the incident on Planet 5 Moons, there must be other people who knew about it. When he arrived at Planet 5 Elements, there was no need for him to go in. He would hide at the side and observe the situation. Just as Ningqing was about to leave the rest stop, Suge and the others also came out. It seemed that they had finished their discussion. When Su Hui and the other 2 walked past Ningqing, Ningqing casually shot out a few spiritual consciousness imprints and placed them on the 3 of them. Whether there was a conspiracy or not, the location on the jade slip was not wrong. The 5-element star did exist, and it was really hidden by an array formation. If Ningqing didn't know that there was a hidden planet here, he might have overlooked it in a hurry. The defensive array around the concealed planet was indeed a top-grade natural defensive array. Ningqing, as an array formation master, could naturally see the power of this concealment grand array. Moreover, this concealment array was indeed a natural array, but a corner of the array was broken. It was precisely because a corner of the concealment array was broken that someone was able to discover it and enter. Ningqing stood not far from the broken corner of this natural concealment grand array and hid himself completely. Knowing that this 5-element planet was a conspiracy, Ningqing naturally would not rush in. Just observing it for a few breaths of time, Ningqing's face immediately filled with shock. He had yet to enter Planet 5 Elements, but he could feel a kind of aura emanating from the corner of the concealment array. This kind of aura was somewhat similar to the aura of the mysterious yellow origin, but it was completely different. Compared to the aura of the mysterious yellow origin, how could it be simple? The only explanation was that the contents of the jade slip he exchanged from Lu Bao Shenlu was real. There really was 5 elemental chaos chi here. Ningqing's spiritual consciousness didn't sweep into Planet 5 Elements. Instead, he hid in the void outside Planet 5 Elements and arranged a void concealment array around him while waiting for Su Hui and the others to arrive. His invisibility technique could hide him from Su Gue, but it couldn't hide him from some Dao transformation or primordial Dao experts. Since he had decided to stay here, he had to hide well. With the invisibility formation and invisibility technique, unless a Dao Essence Divine Emperor specifically searched for him, they wouldn't be able to find him. A day later, Ningqing had already finished arranging the concealment defensive array, while the first batch of people finally arrived. It wasn't Sugue and them but 3 people Ningqing had never seen before. 3 Dao Actualization Divine Emperors. In a place with many sects in Grand Essence Domain, 3 Dao Actualization Divine Emperors weren't much. But in a place like this, 3 Dao Actualization Divine Emperors were considered powerful. The 3 soon arrived outside Planet 5 Elements and stood at a corner of the Concealment Grand Formation. It's really pure primordial chaos chi? one of the female cultivators said in shock. Clearly, they felt the same aura as Ning Cheng. The other two were just as excited as the female cultivator. A green-robed man standing next to the female cultivator said in a hoarse voice, "It's not pure primordial chaos qi. Lu Bao Merchant Union is right. It's indeed 5 elemental chaos qi. This is 5 elemental chaos qi formed after Xiantian primordial chaos qi fused with the laws of heaven and earth. This 5 elemental chaos qi is no less valuable than Xiantian primordial chaos qi. Then what are you waiting for? Let's go in now and do as we agreed. There's mist inside. Let's be careful." The third Tao actualization Divine Emperor stepped into the concealment star protecting Grand Formation. The other man and woman glanced at each other before rushing in. After the three of them entered, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness carefully swept in behind the three of them. However, Ning Cheng's spiritual sense instantly retracted. The three disappeared without a trace as soon as they entered. The entire 5 elements planet was shrouded in white mist. No matter where his spiritual sense landed, it was the same. Sure enough, 5 elemental chaos qi was good, but in this case, should he still go in? Another day later, Ning Cheng didn't see the 3 come out at all. Not only did he not see the 3 come out, but he also saw a second group of people come in. This group also wasn't Su Gui's group. Just like the 3 people who had entered before them, this group of people disappeared without a trace after entering. Ning Cheng sighed in his heart. If he hadn't heard Peng Jin's words, he would have gone in just like the others. At most, he would have taken a more cautious attitude. But now, he didn't want to go in. 5 elemental chaos qi was good, but he needed to be alive to enjoy it. Ning Cheng waited here until the 4th day before Su Gui's group arrived. Before this, Ning Cheng had seen 5 groups of people go in, but no one came out. Su Gui's group consisted of 5 people, 2 at the Tao Birth Realm and 3 at the Tao Sculpting Realm. From his observations over the past few days, Su Gui's group of 5 was the weakest. As expected, the 5 people disappeared as soon as they entered Planet 5 Elements. Ning Cheng had left a spiritual sense imprint on Su Gui and Yan Jinqing's group before. Therefore, he could vaguely feel that the 3 people had entered the depths of Planet 5 Elements. What surprised Ning Cheng was that the 3 people didn't go in the same direction. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, only 1 spiritual sense imprint remained. And this spiritual sense imprint also stopped, perhaps because it felt the danger. It simply stayed in place and did not move. 9 days passed in a hurry. Ning Cheng decided to wait for another day. If no one came out, he would leave. This place was too dangerous. Many people had gone in over the past 9 days, but he had never seen anyone come out. He even saw a Tao Essence Holy Emperor go in, but no one came out. No matter how conceited Ning Cheng was, he wouldn't think that even a Tao Essence Holy Emperor wasn't as good as him. More importantly, he had Yan Ji and Sun Hanrui with him. Sun Hanrui hadn't woken up yet. If he died on Planet 5 Elements, then Yan Ji wouldn't survive. This friend, if you don't go in now, the auction will soon sell a lot of 5 Elements Star Jade strips. At that time, more people will come here, and with more people, someone will eventually find the 5 elemental chaos qi. Although it's safe to stay outside, it's not a good idea. A smiling voice appeared in Ning Cheng's ears, and a man in brocade robes stood not far from Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng felt shocked. Had he been discovered? But soon, he understood that he had been discovered. This man in brocade robes was staring at the place where he was hiding. Ning Cheng sighed and put away the concealment array formation. He knew that it wasn't that his concealment array formation wasn't good, but when he set up the concealment array formation, someone had already set up a concealment array formation here. In other words, this man in brocade robes had the same idea as him. It was just that he came later, while the other party came first and naturally knew that he was hiding. This incident reminded Ning Cheng that he had been too careless. If he had been more careful and checked the surroundings first, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Fortunately, this man in brocade robes looked like a middle-stage Tao birth cultivator, so Ning Cheng didn't take him seriously. This Tao friend, since we've seen the same thing, why don't we team up and go in? The man in brocade robes smiled and cupped his fists towards Ning Cheng when he saw Ning Cheng come out. Ning Cheng replied with a calm voice, "You saw so many people go in and not come out, yet you still want to go in? Dao friend, you really have some guts." The man in brocade robes chuckled, "What is an opportunity? In addition to luck, opportunities also depend on courage. If you are afraid of the future, I'm afraid that you will miss the opportunity even if it is right in front of you. It's just like the 5 elemental chaos chi in front of us right now. If you don't dare to go in and take it, it would be a huge loss. What if you can't come out after going in? Is an opportunity more important, or is your life more important?" Ning Cheng asked. The man in brocade robes didn't chuckle this time. Instead, he laughed out loud. "If you can't come out, it means that you don't have an opportunity. If you don't have the heart to pursue the strong, you will never become strong." Ning Cheng's expression changed immediately. He had not taken the man in brocade robes seriously, but he hadn't expected this fellow to be so courageous. "My name is Jing Shihua. If I don't come out, remember to burn an incense stick for me, huh?" After the man in brocade robes finished speaking, his figure flashed and he entered 5 Elements planet. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath. He had indeed hesitated just now. Because of Yan Ji, if he died, Yan Ji wouldn't survive either. Since Yan Ji was willing to die with him, even if Yan Ji wasn't here, the result would be the same if she learned of this in the future. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng no longer hesitated and decided to enter 5 Elements planet. However, he still had to make some preparations before entering 5 Elements planet. Ruo Shi had borrowed the child talisman of the opening heaven talisman, but he still had a few boundary-breaking talismans. Ning Cheng didn't know if the boundary-breaking talisman could break through the interface of 5 Elements planet, but he didn't intend to gamble. He planned to use the same method he had used to break into the Severing Emotions Dao sect, using a teleportation array. He was an array Dao grandmaster. If he didn't use his expertise, it would be a waste of his many years of studying the Dao of array formations. After arranging a transfer array outside 5 Elements planet, Ning Cheng then entered 5 Elements planet. 5 Elements planet was covered in a white mist, just as Ning Cheng had seen with his spiritual consciousness. What surprised Ning Cheng even more was that before he entered 5 Elements planet, he could still feel a powerful aura similar to the mysterious yellow origin. However, after he entered, he could no longer feel this aura. But just a moment later, he sensed another aura that was even more distinct. It contained a strong 5-element attribute, which made his spirit essence and body become active. Chapter 1024. Was this the 5-element chaos chi? Ning Cheng's entire person immediately turned excited. He didn't expect to feel the 5-element chaos chi the moment he entered 5 Elements planet. This aura seemed different from the aura he felt outside 5 Elements planet, but it also seemed to have a completely different effect from the mysterious yellow origin chi. However, at this moment, Ning Cheng's mind was completely filled with the idea of obtaining the 5-element chaos chi. Therefore, he immediately rushed in the direction of this 5-element aura. No, Ning Cheng only walked for a dozen breaths before he stopped. If he could feel it, then others could also feel it. In other words, the holy emperors who came in before were the same as him, moving forward through this feeling. But the fact was that he had been waiting outside for 9 days, but he didn't see a single cultivator coming out. Ning Cheng had just stopped when a horrifying aura directly rushed into his sea of consciousness. He couldn't even resist it for half a moment. Just like a majestic river, a torrent raged in his sea of consciousness, and a series of roars resounded in his sea of consciousness. Was this an attack targeting his sea of consciousness? Ning Cheng instantly understood that this wasn't a possession, but a powerful means to attack his sea of consciousness. At this moment, Ning Cheng couldn't care about looking for the 5-element chaos chi. He quickly brought out the everlasting blue thunder fort. If he didn't block it, this attack would be like blowing gas into a balloon. Sooner or later, it would blow up his sea of consciousness. At first, this attack really looked like an invisible gas, but as Ning Cheng brought out the everlasting blue thunder fort in his sea of consciousness to block it, This attack turned into a substantial torrent of sharp knives. This reminded Ning Cheng of Ding Si's Knife Mountain artifact. At this moment, the torrent of attacks in his Sea of Consciousness was several times more terrifying than Ding Si's endless Knife Mountain. Catcha! A crack appeared in Ning Cheng's Sea of Consciousness. Ning Cheng's heart sank as a crack appeared in his Sea of Consciousness. Immediately after, his mind suffered a backlash, and he spat out several mouthfuls of blood. The everlasting Blue Thunder Fort couldn't block this attack at all. This attack was like an invisible shadow that could ignore the existence of the everlasting Blue Thunder Fort. More and more of these attacks poured into Ning Cheng's Sea of Consciousness, and these torrents turned into blade lights, sword chi, glaciers, flames. All kinds of attacks crazily spread in Ning Cheng's Sea of Consciousness, and Ning Cheng couldn't use any means to block these attacks. Hurry up! Ning Cheng immediately brought out the array flag to teleport away. He soon discovered that, at this moment, apart from bringing out the everlasting Blue Thunder City, he could not bring out anything else. Not to mention bringing out the array flags, even entering the mysterious yellow bead would be impossible. He had almost no control over his Sea of Consciousness. If this continued, not to mention that he would not be able to control his Sea of Consciousness, even if he could control it, it would explode. Kaka! Ning Cheng's Sea of Consciousness continued to crack open, causing Ning Cheng's entire body to turn cold. He finally understood why there was no news of the people who came in before him. No matter how strong these people were, they would not be able to withstand such a violent Sea of Consciousness attack. How many of them had a Starry Sky Sea of Consciousness like him? Even his Starry Sky Sea of Consciousness couldn't hold out for long, so it would be strange if others could hold out. Planet 5 Elements really was a conspiracy, but Ning Cheng could not understand this kind of conspiracy. Was it just to attract people to come in and kill them? His Sea of Consciousness was still splitting apart. Ning Cheng could feel his consciousness gradually fading away. His Sea of Consciousness contained an additional thought, which pointed him in a certain direction. It seemed that all he had to do was slowly advance in that direction. I must not lose consciousness, Ning Cheng thought in his heart. Dark Nether Spirit Devourer, devouring everything. The Dark Nether Spirit Devourer was Ning Cheng's last resort. At this moment, he had no other choice but to operate the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer to devour the attacks in his Sea of Consciousness. What made Ning Cheng excited was that when the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer started to operate, the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer directly grinded away the attacks in his Sea of Consciousness, turning them into a stream of spiritual consciousness that he could devour. The torrent attacking his Sea of Consciousness turned out to be a transformed spiritual consciousness attack. Moreover, this transformed spiritual consciousness attack was several times more powerful than his own spiritual consciousness attack. Even his everlasting Blue Thunder City could not resist it, which showed how terrifying this spiritual consciousness attack was. When Ning Cheng started to operate the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer grind to grind away the torrent of attacks in his Sea of Consciousness, his Sea of Consciousness finally stopped cracking apart. The violent torrent that filled his Sea of Consciousness also gradually stabilized, at least it did not continue to crack apart his Sea of Consciousness. The torrent attacking his Sea of Consciousness from the outside still continued to increase, and Ning Cheng could not stop it at all. The only thing he could do was to constantly use the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer grind to grind away the attacks in his Sea of Consciousness to protect his Sea of Consciousness. After knowing that this attack might be man-made, Ning Cheng did not dare to enter the mysterious yellow bead. He did not even dare to casually bring out the array flags to escape. Even if he wanted to escape, he needed to have enough strength to do so. Otherwise, just as his front foot reached the outside of 5-element planet, he might end up getting sucked in again. Looking at the torrent attacking his Sea of Consciousness, it was still very mild. As long as he could use the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer grind to grind away this attack, he could eventually save his life. Once he escaped, and the people from 5-element planet found him, they would definitely target him. At that time, how could he survive? Ning Cheng was not sure if this attack was controlled by someone, but he had to be careful. As time slowly flowed by, Ning Cheng also gradually submerged into the white mist, without even a single sound. Ning Cheng just kept using the dark nether spirit devourer to grind away the attacks in his sea of consciousness. Unfortunately, this kind of attack seemed endless. No matter how much Ning Cheng swallowed or grinded away, the torrent of attacks would quickly fill Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness again. If this continued, his sea of consciousness would collapse sooner or later. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath and carefully took out an Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill and swallowed it before taking out a few more transfer array flags. In case he was discovered, or if he had no way to resist this kind of attack on his sea of consciousness, he would immediately bring out the teleportation array flag and make a desperate escape. With the help of the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness grew stronger and stronger. The pressure on Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness was also getting lighter and lighter, while the cracks in his sea of consciousness were also slowly being repaired. Not knowing how much time had passed, Ning Cheng felt that the torrent attacking his sea of consciousness had become even more rapid. If the previous attacks were a small stream, then the current attacks had turned into a large river. Ning Cheng, who had just recovered his sea of consciousness, once again faced a powerful bombardment. Had his secret of being able to refine the torrents attacking his sea of consciousness been exposed? This was Ning Cheng's first reaction. He was sure that his means to resist this kind of attack had been leaked, and the hidden attack was now fully concentrated on him. Hurrying to leave, Ning Cheng immediately brought out the transmission array flag. Ning Cheng had just thrown out a transmission array flag when he once again felt a few figures passing by him. At the same time, the attack in Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness weakened once again. Did someone come again? Soon, Ning Cheng's guess turned into a fact. This time, someone really came, and it wasn't just one or two people. Groups of people rushed into the depths of 5-element planet from different places. Although many of them saw Ning Cheng, no one felt strange about it. At this time, the torrent attacking Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness had become even weaker. Ning Cheng understood that this definitely had something to do with the cultivators who came in. With so many people coming in at once, the only explanation was that the auction was over, and many cultivators had come to 5-element planet after receiving the news. Feeling that the dark nether spirit devourer had completely worn away the attacks in his sea of consciousness, Ning Cheng didn't rush to leave. He didn't want to know the purpose of 5-element planet attracting so many people to this place. He truly felt the 5-element primal chaos chi here. This time, Ning Cheng didn't rush forward with the crowd. His spiritual consciousness had become even more powerful now, so he directly spread out his spiritual consciousness to observe the surroundings. The cultivators who came in were the same as him. After coming in, they desperately tried to escape in one direction. Some people, like him, woke up halfway. Unfortunately, they didn't have the dark nether spirit devourer cultivation method. In the end, they still had to follow the voice in their consciousness. Ning Cheng didn't dare to follow these people. He was afraid that the attacks would control his sea of consciousness again. He also didn't go out but chose one of the directions. The reason why he chose this direction was because of his spiritual consciousness imprint. He had left a spiritual consciousness imprint on Su Hui, Yan Jinqing, and that Peng Jin. In the end, only this spiritual consciousness imprint remained. Ning Cheng remembered very clearly that this spiritual consciousness imprint was left on Yan Jinqing. Ning Cheng walked very slowly. After more than half an hour, he found Yan Jinqing. To be precise, he found Yan Jinqing's body. Yan Jinqing had already died, but she had a strange smile on her face. Her body was intact, but the clothes around her waist were missing, revealing her white body. There was also a cyan handprint on her lower abdomen. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath. It wasn't that Yan Jinqing had died that shocked him, but the state of Yan Jinqing's death surprised him. Yan Jinqing was a Tao sculpting holy emperor. Generally, after a holy emperor died, as long as their corporeal body remained, there would be some remnant Tao charm. Many holy emperors still had traces of Tao charm on their bodies even after countless years of death. But Yan Jinqing looked like an ordinary person. After she died, there was no trace of Tao charm left. It was as if someone had stripped away the traces of Dao charm on her body. Stripped away? Ningqing shuddered. At this moment he suddenly heard a scream. Someone is devouring the foundation Dao charm of cultivators here, crazily seizing spiritual roots. The voice only spoke half a sentence before it stopped abruptly. Ningcheng's scalp went numb. This was not a good place. But before he could think of leaving, he heard more sharp screams and even some shouts. Among these shouts, Ningcheng vaguely felt an aura similar to the mysterious yellow origin aura. That's right, this is the aura. Ningcheng felt ecstatic. He felt sure that this aura was different from the aura he felt when he first entered Five Elements Planet. The aura he sensed earlier was attracting him, urging him to rush in. But this aura was the real Five Elements Chaos Chi. Ningcheng didn't hesitate and directly followed this aura. Since entering Five Elements Planet, he had been in a passive state. Now that he felt the Five Elements Chaos Chi, if he didn't find a way to take it away, he would feel sorry for himself. Chapter 1025. At this moment, in Ningcheng's perception, the entire Five Elements Planet felt like a huge steep slope, and he kept falling down. Along the way, Ningcheng encountered several corpses of cultivators who had just fallen. It seemed that he wasn't the only one who had discovered the Five-Element Chaos Chi. Many more people had discovered this place. It's just that these people couldn't reach the end before falling down. These cultivators' corpses were the same as Yan Jinqing's, without even a trace of Dao charm. At this moment, a torrent several times stronger than the one that attacked his sea of consciousness before slammed into his sea of consciousness. Catcha! Ningcheng's starry sky sea of consciousness once again made a cracking sound, and Ningcheng felt his consciousness tearing apart into pieces. The terrible pain made him roar out in a low voice. This kind of attack was something his dark nether spirit devourer grind couldn't swallow. Unable to contain the essence blood within his body, he couldn't help but spit it out. Ningcheng still didn't have the slightest thought of retreating. Instead, he kept rushing forward while using the dark nether spirit devourer to swallow the torrent that attacked his sea of consciousness. In this way, Ningcheng kept rushing down while operating the dark nether spirit devourer grind to absorb the attack in his sea of consciousness. As for the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, Ningcheng treated it as a candy at this moment. As for the aftereffects, Ningcheng didn't care about it right now. Bang! An invisible restriction blocked Ningcheng's path. Outside the restriction, there were several corpses of cultivators who had just fallen. They had the same luck as Ningcheng, but they didn't have the same strength as Ningcheng. As such, they died just after arriving here. Ningcheng quickly ignored the corpses of the cultivators on the ground and stared at the scene in front of him in shock. This was a huge spherical restriction, and there were 5 completely different auras flowing within it. Each aura contained an indescribable Dao charm and something similar to a morning bell or evening drum. Although there was no sound, it could penetrate into the depths of a person's mind, just like a giant drum roaring in the bottom of one's heart. This definitely was the Five-Element Chaos Chi. Ningcheng held back the ecstasy in his heart and raised his hand to crack the restriction in front of him. "Ant, if you dare to break this restriction, this sage will not stop until I devour your soul for 1,000,000 years." Just as Ningcheng was about to break the restriction, a bone-chilling voice rang out in Ningcheng's ears. Ningcheng suddenly looked up and saw a looming shadow appear behind the huge restriction. This shadow seemed to be formed by countless Dao rune auras. These Dao rune auras were fusing together at a rapid speed. "So it's you. You tricked all these people here to devour their Dao aura, foundation, and spiritual roots, right? What a vicious cultivation method." Ningcheng raised his hand, and a long spear immediately appeared in his hand. The world's cultivation methods are only divided into useful ones and useless ones. How could there be evil and non-evil ones? For example, your devouring will attack technique is a very useful thing. Otherwise, I'm afraid you wouldn't have been able to reach here. The shadow laughed. Ningcheng found that as this looming figure spoke, it had once again solidified a bit. He immediately understood that this figure must be constantly growing while devouring. Just like his Seven Bridges divine art, after merging with the laws of the Dark Nether realm, it slowly solidified. At this time, Ning Cheng was even more certain that this fellow could not move, and could only attack through the torrent of attacks that had entered his sea of consciousness. Cultivators who couldn't devour spiritual consciousness could only watch their sea of consciousness explode after entering this place. As for this fellow from Planet 5 Elements, after killing these cultivators, he could use the fastest speed to seize the Tao runes, foundation, and spiritual roots of these cultivators. Through this kind of seizing, he continued to grow and solidify. Once he grew to the point where he could move at will, Ning Cheng wouldn't even have the ability to resist. I'll give you the chaos chi of the 5 elements. As long as you cooperate with me, we can talk about the specific cooperation methods after I give you the chaos chi of the 5 elements. Otherwise, even if I let you enter this restriction, you would only be able to stare at the chaos chi of the 5 elements. Let me tell you, the chaos chi of the 5 elements is not something that can be taken away by ordinary things. But I can use this restriction to let you take away these things. The shadow behind the huge restriction continued to attack Ning Cheng's position in various ways. I agree. After the shadow heard Ning Cheng's words, it calmly spoke up, "It's good that you agree. We both have our own gains. Otherwise, you wouldn't get anything and would even die." When the shadow spoke these words, its figure turned even more solid. But before it could finish its words, the spirit artifact long spear in Ning Cheng's hand slammed into the circular restriction. At the same time, Ning Cheng also spoke out the last few words. That's strange. At this time, Ning Cheng fully understood why Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce leaked the location of Planet 5 Elements before the auction even started. There was only one reason, that was, this shadow's cultivation wasn't high enough. The shadow most likely had an agreement with Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce, which meant that Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce would send a small number of cultivators here to improve the shadow's strength. Once the shadow's strength improved to a certain level, it would bring in more cultivators to improve the shadow's strength once again. It was just like a starving person, who would first give him some porridge, followed by a feast of fish and meat. Ning Cheng would remember this enmity from the Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce for no reason. Catch it. This circular restriction was already a bit broken, and it began to overflow with the primal chi of the 5 elements. Coupled with Ning Cheng being an array formation master proficient in the Tao of array formations, this spear strike caused a crack to appear on the circular restriction. If he didn't have the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer technique and the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, his sea of consciousness would have turned to dust before he could even reach this place. In the face of this fellow who wanted to kill him, if Ning Cheng was willing to compromise, then he wouldn't be Ning Cheng. What's more, this fellow's body hadn't even solidified yet. You're courting death. The shadow roared in anger, and a dozen torrents of Sea of Consciousness attacks swept into Ning Cheng's Sea of Consciousness. Ning Cheng staggered as he crazily spurted out several mouthfuls of blood, while his entire face turned incomparably pale. He had originally disguised himself as a family's pretty boy, so after spitting out these blood arrows, his face turned even paler. No, if this continued, his Sea of Consciousness would eventually shatter under these torrents. While Ning Cheng crazily operated the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer technique, his spiritual consciousness also began to stretch out, forming a spiritual consciousness domain around his body. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness domain had already taken shape a long time ago. However, using the spiritual consciousness domain to deal with other spirit techniques did not have much effect, which was why he did not use the spiritual consciousness domain to defend himself. Now that he was in a life and death situation, he forcibly brought out his spiritual consciousness domain to face the enemy. The shadow's torrent of consciousness attacks, other than spiritual consciousness, could not be blocked at all. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness domain had just formed, when nearly 40 to 50 torrents of consciousness blasted over. Ants, go to hell. Seeing Ning Cheng continue to attack the circular restriction, the shadow finally went berserk and focused more of its energy on dealing with Ning Cheng. Kaka. The cracking sounds came from Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness domain, which was continuously shattering under these consciousness attacks. The torrents of consciousness attacks bombarded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, causing Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness to crack a few more times. The cracking sounds came from the circular restriction under Ning Cheng's long spear, causing 2 more cracks to appear on it. At this moment, Ning Cheng's Zifu started to show signs of cracking. Ning Cheng grabbed a handful of medicinal pills and swallowed them down. At the same time, his spiritual consciousness domain crazily stretched out. If not for his spiritual consciousness domain blocking part of that terrifying attack, his sea of consciousness might have exploded. Boom boom. The shadow's torrent of consciousness seemed to have gone crazy as it smashed into Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness domain. However, Ning Cheng felt happy in his heart because this attack was not even half as powerful as the last time. He knew that it wasn't that the shadow's strength had declined, but that more people had rushed here, and the shadow couldn't take care of them all. Sure enough, just as Ning Cheng thought of this, several figures landed not far from Ning Cheng. One of the cultivators screamed, "5 elements chaos chi." Immediately, these figures completely ignored everything else and brought out their weapons to attack the circular restriction. 2 screams rang out, and the 2 Tao Nourishment Holy Emperors who had just attacked fell directly. The only reason they could come this far was because of Ning Cheng's restraint. Now that they wanted to attack the circular restriction, the shadow naturally wouldn't let them do as they wished. Ning Cheng could resist the Sea of Consciousness torn attack, but it didn't mean that others could resist this terrifying attack. The 5 elements chaos chi was too attractive. Even though 2 Tao Nourishment Holy Emperors had fallen, the people who came later still attacked the restriction like crazy. The pressure on Ning Cheng greatly decreased, and his spear once again struck the crack in the circular restriction. This circular restriction finally gave out a "kacha" sound, before a large hole with a radius of a few feet appeared. Ning Cheng immediately rushed in. Behind Ning Cheng were 2 Tao Transformation Holy Emperors, 1 Tao Nourishment Holy Emperor, and a man in brocade robes. Although Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness had only scanned slightly, he still recognized the man in brocade robes. This guy had hidden in the periphery of 5 Elements planet before him, and he seemed to be called Jing Shihua. This guy was really opportunistic. Ning Cheng risked his life to take the lead, and this guy came here to directly grab the fruits of victory. However, Ning Cheng didn't have time to care about these guys right now. He wanted to grab as much 5 elements chaos chi as possible in the shortest time possible and then escape. Since everyone was here, it would be up to fate to grab more. He didn't believe that the shadow would give up like this. The shadow had devoured so many cultivators' Tao runes foundation and spirit roots. All it needed now was fusion. Once the other party fused with it, if he was still here, it would be the day of his death. An indescribable Tao rune aura cleansed Ning Cheng's body, making him feel comfortable and refreshed. Even his understanding of Tao runes and 5 elements spirit arts instantly became much stronger. "Big brother, I didn't misjudge you. I'm basking in your light." Jing Shihua passed by Ning Cheng and didn't forget to thank him. He even promoted Ning Cheng to big brother. When he saw Jing Shihua holding an exquisite jade bottle, Ning Cheng recalled what the shadow had said. This 5 elements chaos chi was very hard to take away. Just as Ning Cheng thought of this, he heard the 2 Tao Transformation Holy Emperors exclaim, "Not good, we don't have anything to take away this 5 elements chaos chi." More and more cultivators rushed here, and the shadow no longer cared about Ning Cheng. Chapter 1026. When Ning Cheng saw the exquisite jade bottle in Jing Shihua's hand continuously absorbing the origin aura, he sighed inwardly. This fellow had prepared everything before coming here. Ning Cheng stopped thinking about it and brought out the immeasurable gourd. The only treasure he had that could store things was the immeasurable gourd. As for the bottles and jars he had refined, Ning Cheng knew that he could not take them out. Before taking out the immeasurable gourd, Ning Cheng had already made preparations. If the immeasurable gourd could not collect the 5 elemental chaos chi, he would use the mysterious yellow bead to store it. The only pity was that the 5 elemental chaos chi would dissipate in the space of the mysterious yellow bead after being stored in it. The immeasurable gourd seemed to exist specifically to store the 5 elemental chaos chi. As soon as Ning Cheng took out the immeasurable gourd, it started trembling violently. Ning Cheng had just thought of storing things when the immeasurable gourd's mouth suddenly enlarged. The huge gourd's mouth floated in the middle of the 5 elemental chaos chi like a bottomless pit, seemingly waiting for Ning Cheng's command. At this point, how could Ning Cheng not know that the immeasurable gourd desperately wanted to store the 5 elemental chaos chi? His spiritual consciousness immediately landed on the immeasurable gourd and sent out a thought to collect the 5 elemental chaos chi. He even thought of separating the 5 elemental chaos chi. As for whether it could be separated, Ning Cheng did not care. Bang! The sound of space contracting could be heard. Ning Cheng was shocked to see the 5 elemental chaos chi in the huge spherical restriction pour into the immeasurable gourd like water bursting through a dam. A huge whirlpool appeared around the immeasurable gourd, and Ning Cheng quickly sobered up. His heart was filled with ecstasy. He had guessed that the immeasurable gourd could collect the 5 elemental chaos chi, but he had not expected it to be so heaven-defying. Given the immeasurable gourd's crazy absorption rate, it would take at most half an hour to absorb all the 5 elemental chaos chi. Ning Cheng knew that he could not absorb for more than half an hour. Once that happened, let alone the shadow, even the other sacred emperors in the circular restriction would not let him off. While the measureless gourd crazily absorbed the 5-element primal chi, Ning Cheng's hand curled up and once again formed a whirlpool. But this time, it was not the measureless gourd, but Ning Cheng directly sent it into the mysterious yellow bead. In just half an incense stick's time, the 5 elemental chaos chi had been reduced by nearly half. Moreover, Ning Cheng harvested too much of the 5-element primal chaos chi, which exposed the huge absorption vortex in just a short time. Even if the chaos chi of the 5 elements could make others ignore their surroundings, it was impossible for them to ignore this situation. At this moment, all eyes fell on Ning Cheng's measureless gourd. Ning Cheng's absorption of the mysterious yellow bead's 5 elements primal chi also caused others to think that he had inhaled the measureless gourd. Everyone had come here to snatch the 5 elements of primal chaos chi, but Ning Cheng's act of snatching it was a bit too overbearing. It was impossible for people not to feel jealous. A few Tao actualization divine emperors charged at Ning Cheng at the same time. Ning Cheng even saw a Tao essence divine emperor grab at him. Ning Cheng roared and unleashed his spiritual consciousness attack. At the same time, dozens of time wheels shot out. Spiritual consciousness attacks and time wheels were powerful killing moves. Even if they couldn't kill the Tao actualization divine emperors, they were enough to delay them for a few breaths. A few breaths was enough for Ning Cheng. He threw out the teleportation array flag without hesitation and put away the measureless gourd. The teleportation array flag brought with it a spatial fluctuation. In just a few breaths, it had already swept Ning Cheng away. Array Tao powerhouses were truly capricious. They even used teleportation arrays to escape. The few Tao actualization divine emperors could only watch Ning Cheng get teleported away. No one went to chase after Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng didn't escape with all the 5-element primal chaos chi. He only took about half of it, and there was still a lot left. It just depended on whether everyone could take it away. At this time, everyone relied on their own ability to take as much as they could. Even if they knew that Ning Cheng had taken the biggest part, no one went to chase after Ning Cheng. There would definitely be some left here, but who knew if they could catch up to Ning Cheng? It was just that there weren't many cultivators who could take away the 5-element primal chaos chi like Ning Cheng. One reason was that they didn't have any treasures to store the 5-element primal chaos chi, and the other was that they didn't have Ning Cheng's life-saving means. Some of them couldn't even stay in this circular restriction for a few breaths before their sea of consciousness was blasted open by an invisible torrent, turning them into cold corpses. Ning Cheng knew that those people wouldn't chase after him immediately. After teleporting out of 5 Elements Planet, he desperately activated the twin wings of the heavenly clouds. After leaving Five Elements Planet, he immediately brought out the Starry Sky Wheel and rushed away. Whether it was the Tao Essence powerhouse in Five Elements Planet or the shadow that devoured Tao Charm foundations and spiritual roots, he couldn't deal with them right now. Since he already had what he wanted, what was he waiting for? He wasn't qualified to find others to settle the accounts of the Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce. From the moment Ning Qing teleported out of Five Elements Planet to the moment he brought out the Starry Sky Wheel, it took less than 3 breaths. He didn't even put away the teleportation array, just to escape as quickly as possible. In fact, Ning Qing didn't do anything wrong. His figure had just disappeared when a huge handprint grabbed his teleportation array and directly crushed it into powder. Unfortunately, Ning Qing had left too quickly. Although this handprint contained a powerful aura of laws, it couldn't stop Ning Qing in time. The shadow in the depths of Five Elements Planet, which was slightly more solid, trembled at this moment. The handprint he had condensed just now had made his solid body even more illusory. Only he knew that he wasn't trembling because he had consumed too much essence qi, but because of Ning Qing's anger. To obtain this planet containing the 5-element primal chaos qi, he had paid the price of his corporeal body and cultivation. His essence spirit had guarded this place for countless years, but just when he was about to succeed, an ant destroyed it. What made him even angrier was that he hadn't managed to crush this ant to death. Unfortunately, he had condensed the handprint a little too late. At this moment, he regretted it very much. If he had known this earlier, he would have asked the Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce to push back the date of the auction to a few more days so that he could grow stronger. Even at the cost of his condensed body, he still couldn't stop Ning Qing. Therefore, he could only vent his anger on the cultivators still on Five Elements Planet. As the Holy Emperors died one after another, coupled with the 5-element primal chaos qi dissipating, more and more people realized that the situation was hopeless. Everyone started to flee from Five Elements Planet. No matter how unwilling the shadow was, he could only watch as the cultivators escaped. The handprint he condensed not only failed to stop that Tao sculpting ant, but it also allowed more people to escape. He would remember this ant who robbed him of the 5-element primal chaos qi. One day, he would chew and swallow this ant. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to calm the anger in his heart. Ning Qing changed his appearance to that of a middle-aged scholar on the Starry Sky Wheel and returned to Broken Thatch Spirit City for the 3rd time. He didn't want to come back and wanted to go to the Grand Essence domain alone. But after thinking about it again and again, he decided to go with the Void Airship. Otherwise, with his strength alone, he wouldn't be able to pass through the Grand Essence Demon Vein. Besides, Su Yan also said that it would take at least a year to reach the Grand Essence Sea through the Grand Essence Demon Vein. Moreover, after passing through the Grand Essence Demon Vein, he would only reach the edge of the Grand Essence Sea. If he didn't follow the airship fleet, he might not be able to find the teleportation array by the Grand Essence Sea. Ning Qing wasn't crazy to cross the Grand Essence Sea directly to the Grand Essence Domain without using the teleportation array. The Grand Essence Ruins was the largest place in the Grand Essence Realm, followed by the Grand Essence Sea. Not to mention that he didn't know how long it would take to cross the Grand Essence Sea, even if the time needed was within his acceptable range. Even with his strength, he wasn't qualified to cross the Grand Essence Sea. Although many people went to Five Elements Planet, when Ning Qing returned to Broken Thatch Spirit City, there were still a lot of people in the city. Most of the Tao Transformation Holy Emperors didn't appear, but Ning Qing didn't see any Tao Essence Holy Emperors. Ning Qing went directly to the Broken Thatch Spirit City's Void Airship. Most of the Void Airships here were heading to the edge of the Grand Essence Sea. Moreover, the majority of the Void Airships hung under the name of the Chamber of Commerce. In other words, these Void Airships not only carried people but also did business. As one of the largest chambers of commerce here, Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce naturally had its own fleet. This time, Ning Qing didn't choose the Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce. This Chamber of Commerce had left a bad impression on Ning Qing. What's more, Ning Qing still had a lot of 5-element chaos qi on him. Ning Qing chose the Sea Sky Pavilion Chamber of Commerce's airship. The Sea Sky Pavilion Chamber of Commerce wasn't much weaker than the Lu Bao Chamber of Commerce in this area. It's just that the Sea Sky Pavilion Chamber of Commerce's main business direction wasn't on the edge of the Grand Essence realm but in the Grand Essence Sea. Another point was that the Sea Sky Pavilion Chamber of Commerce's airship would set off in one day. The price to go from Broken Thatch Spirit City to the edge of the Grand Essence Sea was 2 million high-grade spirit crystals. But 2 million spirit crystals didn't mean much to Ning Cheng. For the rogue cultivators who struggled on the edge of the Grand Essence realm all year round, it was a huge sum of money. Moreover, 2 million spirit crystals was only for a middle-grade room. The top-grade room cost 3 million, while the lowest-grade room cost 1 million spirit crystals. Ning Cheng didn't choose the top-grade room or the lowest-grade room. Since it was only for a year, he paid 2 million spirit crystals and chose a middle-grade room. A day passed by quickly, and Ning Cheng found that the price of the ticket had increased after boarding the airship. In just one day, the price of a middle-grade room rose from 2 million to 3 million. Not only that, but more and more powerhouses came to board the airship. Ning Cheng didn't casually release his spiritual consciousness, nor did he inquire about the reason. He walked into his room and directly covered it with restrictions. Then he wrote, "Do not disturb in seclusion outside the room." He knew the reason for this. The cultivators who went to 5 Elements Planet had returned. This time, because of him, many cultivators managed to escape from 5 Elements Planet, and many of them managed to obtain 5-element Chaos Chi. Most likely, some of the people who increased the price to board the airship had a small amount of 5-element Chaos Chi. Once these 5-element Chaos Chi reached the Grand Essence Domain's Heaven Essence Sacred City, they would sell for a shocking price. Ning Cheng sighed in his heart. With so many uninvited guests, this trip to the Grand Essence Sea would most likely turn into a mess. Unfortunately, he had no other choice. If he took the airship behind him, it would only cause more chaos. It might even attract the attention of that fellow from 5 Elements Planet. Chapter 1027. Ning Cheng didn't stay in the room for long when the ship shook slightly. Ning Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. He finally set off. The airship's speed wasn't as fast as the Starry Sky Wheel, but it wasn't slow either. After confirming that he was far away from Broken Thatch Spirit City, Ning Cheng retracted his spiritual consciousness. He planned to set up some restrictions in the room and then cut out some of the messy things that had swallowed in his sea of consciousness. In 5-element Planet, to save his life, he only knew how to swallow the torrent of consciousness attacks. He didn't completely cut out the hidden dangers that he had swallowed and refined. In addition, he also wanted to go to the mysterious yellow bead to have a look. The mysterious yellow bead had also absorbed a lot of 5-element Chaos Chi this time and had undergone great changes. However, he didn't know if it could allow people other than him to enter. At this moment, the restriction at the door suddenly stopped. Ning Cheng frowned. He had clearly hung a "Do Not Disturb in Seclusion" sign outside his room, yet someone still touched the restriction at his door. He swept out with his spiritual consciousness and found that it was just an eternal cultivator outside. Ning Cheng opened the restriction. He didn't believe that an eternal cultivator would dare to touch the restriction at his door. After opening the restriction, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out. Sure enough, a Tao Nourishment Holy Emperor and a Tao Transformation Holy Emperor were watching this place from a distance. This junior is afraid to disturb senior. It's because of the auction held on the Sea Heaven Pavilion's airship. This auction will have top-grade treasures. Senior is a distinguished guest on the Sea Heaven Pavilion's airship. Before the eternal level cultivator could finish his words, Ning Cheng slapped him across the face and sent him flying. At the same time, Ning Cheng roared, "Are you blind? Didn't you see the sign this sage hung outside? This is the first time. If anyone dares to disturb this sage, kill without mercy." After saying that, Ning Cheng raised his hand and changed the sign outside. Then, he quickly returned to the room and put up the restriction again. He didn't give the two people in the distance any chance at all. It was obvious that the two holy emperors wanted this eternal cultivator to open the door. Regardless of whether he went or not, regardless of his attitude, the two holy emperors would find an excuse to argue with him. Ning Cheng could guess their purpose. They wanted to see if he came from 5-element planet and if he had 5-element chaos chi on him. Therefore, he directly changed the sign on the door to, in seclusion, if disturbed again, kill without mercy. If those two fellows dared to come after him again, he would kill them. If he didn't do something on the spaceship, there would be an endless stream of people trying to beat around the bush. When the two sage emperors in the distance saw Ning Cheng's actions, their expressions turned ugly. The Tao Nourishment Divine Emperor said, "A mere Tao Molding Divine Emperor is too cocky. We'll go ourselves." The Tao Actualization Divine Emperor shook his head. "Wait, he knows we're watching." In this situation, he still dared to do such a thing, which meant that he was not ordinary. Let's investigate his situation first before taking action. After Ning Cheng saw the two holy emperors leave the room, he continued to arrange defensive arrays and restrictions around the room. Maybe there was a Tao Essence Divine Emperor on this ship, but even if they offended him, he wasn't afraid. He would just run away. Half a day later, Ning Cheng arranged the room as if it was made of iron. Unless there was someone whose array skills were far above his, it would be impossible to break into his room in a hurry. Ning Cheng immediately took out the measureless gourd. Ever since the measureless gourd collected a lot of 5-elemental chaos chi, he hadn't had the time to check it. He didn't dare check it in Broken Thatch God City, but he didn't have to worry about it now. Taking out the measureless gourd, Ning Cheng scanned it with his spiritual sense. Sure enough, Ning Cheng couldn't help but mutter to himself in surprise. At this moment, there were a few more restrictions inside the measureless gourd. At the bottom, there was still a drop of 3,000 weak water. Then the 5-elemental chaos chi was also clearly separated. Each 5-elemental chaos chi occupied a space in an orderly manner. This thing was definitely no weaker than his 7 Bridges spirit art. Not only could it collect 5-elemental chaos chi, but it could also store them separately. Putting away the measureless gourd, Ning Cheng started to recover his sea of consciousness. In 5 Elements Planet, he had swallowed any pill. Although it saved his life, there were still a lot of side effects. Even if it was a special grade pill, he couldn't take it like this. Therefore, he had to refine out some of the pill toxins hidden in his body. In addition, although his sea of consciousness had strengthened a lot, this enhancement did not come from his cultivation. Most of it came from devouring spiritual consciousness attacks. So far, with the help of the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, Ning Cheng hadn't felt anything wrong. However, Ning Cheng didn't dare to take it lightly. He always believed in his own point of view. That is, how much you pay, how much you get. There would never be love or hate for no reason. If cultivating spiritual consciousness was so easy, then he could just find an opponent to devour other people's spiritual consciousness. Why would he need to cultivate? Why would he go through all the trouble to find all kinds of cultivation resources? He wasn't the creator of the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, but he had seen the fellow who was suspected to have created the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. That fellow created the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, but didn't he just struggle with his life essence soul? In the end, he still had to go through all the trouble to seize his body. There could be opportunities in the process of cultivation, but there was no such thing as cheating. Because of this point of view, Ning Cheng still started to cut off the spiritual consciousness power devoured from his sea of consciousness without feeling anything wrong. A month later, Ning Cheng completely cut off the spiritual consciousness power devouring from his sea of consciousness and sealed it into a bead with restrictions. Ning Cheng knew how powerful this spiritual consciousness power was. He believed that if he blasted this bead out, even a Tao Essence Holy Emperor wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even if this bead was comparable to Lu Fanglin's Tao Splitting Bead, it wouldn't lose out. Lu Fanglin's Tao Splitting Bead still needed some time to activate, but his bead had been refined by the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll. Therefore, if he threw it out, he could activate it at any time. Perhaps it was a psychological effect, but after cutting off the spiritual consciousness power devoured by the Dark Nether Devouring Spirit Scroll, Ning Cheng felt his sea of consciousness becoming clearer and more relaxed. Not only did his cultivation not decrease after cutting off the spiritual consciousness power, but it even improved a little. He wasn't too far away from the peak Dao sculpting realm. A month passed, and no one came to disturb him. Nevertheless, Ning Cheng still didn't feel completely relieved. He set up a few more spiritual consciousness triggering restrictions before entering the true spirit world. Yan Ji, why aren't you cultivating? Ning Cheng saw Yan Ji fiddling with flowers and plants in the true spirit world and quickly asked. When Yan Ji heard that Ning Cheng no longer called her junior apprentice Sister Ji, she looked even happier. She walked over and said softly, "After I advanced to the eternal realm, I cultivated for a few months, but the results were minimal. I can only stabilize my cultivation, but it's still difficult for me to advance." Ning Cheng immediately understood the reason and nodded. It should be because the laws of the true spirit world are too weak. Eternal realm cultivators have already condensed their own grand Dao laws. Staying here to cultivate would indeed make it difficult for you to make progress. I'm now on my way to the Grand Essence domain, and I'm afraid that there will be a war on the way. You can only stay here. Be careful. Yan Ji didn't ask Ning Cheng why there would be a war. She hadn't even reached the Dao sculpting realm, so she couldn't help Ning Cheng. I know. My mysterious yellow bead has obtained a lot of 5-element chaos chi. Now, I want to see if you can enter the mysterious yellow bead. If you can go in, the mysterious yellow bead's heaven and earth laws will definitely help you cultivate. After Ning Cheng finished, he put his arm around Yan Ji's slender waist, and with a flash, he entered the mysterious yellow bead from the true spirit world. Yan Ji looked at the beautiful world in front of her in amazement. Compared to the true spirit world, this place was a real paradise. Green mountains and clear waters, a gentle breeze caressing her face. In the distance, the endless sea stretched as far as the eye could see, and further away, the rising sun could be seen. The mountain peaks gathered, and the waves raged. There were no outsiders here except for her and Ning Cheng. What a beautiful, tall, and dense tree. Yan Ji's gaze fell on a giant lush tree several thousand feet high in the distance. This giant tree looked like a big umbrella that covered the surrounding space. Did it really give birth to the sun, moon, and stars? Ning Cheng also looked at the rising sun in the distance with excitement. He could clearly feel that the heaven and earth laws in the mysterious yellow bead had become more complete. Although the rising sun was still weak, it showed that the laws here had started to improve. That's right, that tree had become so lush. When he sent the half-wood origin bead into the mysterious yellow bead, Chasing Bull had planted that tree. But at that time, it had withered. But now it had come to life. Yan Ji, the laws here aren't any weaker than the Grand Essence realm. You can cultivate here, huh? Ning Cheng only spoke halfway when he suddenly realized something. Yan Ji hadn't been sent out yet, which meant that his mysterious yellow bead had become an independent world. Even if this world wasn't perfect yet, it could still allow people to live here. Yan Ji also realized something and turned to look at Ning Cheng affectionately. If she could, she would rather live here with Ning Cheng for the rest of her life. Ning Cheng felt pleasantly surprised and was just about to send Chasing Bull and the exploding golden wasps into the mysterious yellow bead when Yan Ji gently wrapped her arms around his waist. Previously, because Yan Ji couldn't cultivate in the mysterious yellow bead, Ning Cheng had driven Chasing Bull out. He feared that Yan Ji would feel a little lonely in the true spirit world, so he asked Chasing Bull to help her in the true spirit world. At this moment, Ning Cheng forgot to call Chasing Bull in. At this moment, all sounds became superfluous. Yan Ji's eyes gradually blurred. At this moment, everything became secondary, only staying together. But her blurred eyes quickly sobered up and looked at Ning Cheng in doubt. She felt a killing intent coming from Ning Cheng.